Amazing news, everybody! Thursday afternoon, PTR update 1.36.1. That indicates a lot of minor changes and not a new entire build like 1.37, but definitely noticeable upgrades, and this patch is quite wild. So, we start with the patch notes at the general section. An important thing: added save load functionality back to online games. Does not apply to ranked matches, to ladder for example, but it should apply to custom games. There we go. In the observer mode, you can see the hero XP bar, the detailed hero XP once again when you hover over the XP bar, which was taken away, or was a bug, in the advanced observer overlay. Now it's back. Then lots of bug fixes, which in general is a good thing. But here we come to the nitty-gritty, to the balance. We'll just read them. First and foremost, no commentary. Once we read them all and you know what it's all about and you see the bigger picture, then we will comment on the greater impact of things in the certain matchups. Human balance changes. The militia get parts of their militia duration back. This was 40 seconds for a long time. Back in the old days, it was 45 seconds. Now we find the middle ground with 42.5 seconds militia duration. Mountain King's Bash. The damage is going to be increased from 25 flat to an increase per level. From 25 on all levels to 25 on level 1, 50 on level 2, and 75 on level 3. Devotion Aura is also getting a buff. Usually it adds to the armor, 2 on level 1, 3.5 and 5. Now it gets buffed to 3, 6 and 9, so a paladin buff there, or Devotion Aura buff there. Movement speed, you will see this across the board. All the heroes that have a 290 movement speed currently will have a 280 movement speed. Prior to Reforged, these heroes had a 270 movement speed, if I'm not mistaken. So after 3 or 4 years, we'll find a middle ground there as well. This goes for the heroes Mountain King and Paladin for human first and foremost. Night Elf is also getting a nerf on the talents. They cost 10 gold more now, after the buff in the last patch where they got the piercing damage versus air units. Now a little bit more costly. Immolation was obviously a big talking point of the Demon Hunter. It now costs mana again, or a noticeable mana amount, to activate it. It was more or less free in the last patch. Now it costs 5 mana again to turn it on and off again. They also address the mana activation cost requirement, so you can't activate it if you don't have the mana for 1 tick of Immolation. While the Demon Hunter was fairly strong, we haven't seen too much Warden, so this gets addressed as well in 2 regards. Warden Blink cooldown has been reduced from 10.74 seconds to 10.5 and 2.5 seconds, so a buff on level 2 and 3. Not as crazy as it was back in the old days where it had a 1 second cooldown and you can just blink across the map, but 2.5 seconds max. Fan of Knives. Many people talked about this, including Lawliot, that this needs a little buff. So the max total damage has been buffed significantly from 300, 625, and 950 to 480, 800, and 1200. So quite a bit. We will talk about this afterwards. Undead is addressed several times as well. Crypt Lord passive first and foremost. By Carapace, you rarely see it because Impale and the Beetles are so good. The passive, rather useless, but Blizzard intends to fix that. It gives you more damage return, so basically the Thorns part of Spike Carapace gets better on level 2 and 3, from 15, 25, 35 to 15%, 30%, 45%, matching Thorns Aura. And the armor value is getting buffed as well from 357 to 4812. A huge buff on level 3. The others, not so much. Many people talk about the Necromancers as they are rarely seen in pro play. Raise Dead, which is where you get the skeletons from. The mana cost are reduced by 25 from 75 to 50. Cripple, a spell that can be very powerful, but it's also very expensive, from 125 to 100. Skeletal Mastery, which is the update for Necromancers. The costs have been reduced in gold and also in lumber, very heavily in lumber, by 50 and 75 respectively. Necromancer buffs across the board. Nerubian Tower, big topic for everyone, the slow tower of the undead. The cooldown has been increased from 1 to 1.5. We'll talk a lot about that, I'm very sure. Here you also see the movement speed nerfs that you saw for human already. All the heroes with a 290 movement speed get reduced to 280. That is Cryptlord, Dreadlord, Lich. Orcs. They've been suffering, let's be honest. Let's see how Blizzard helps them. Bladestorm, first and foremost, gets a damage increase buff from 110 per second to 160 per second. Noticeable, definitely. Spirit Walker build time reduced by 5 seconds, also noticeable. The Walker Adept upgrade is also faster, as well as the Spirit Walker Master Training, all cut by 15 seconds from 60 to 45 and 75 to 60. Upgrades are a lot cheaper now in lumber. This is something that I proposed. All of the upgrades cost reduced by 25. I wonder if that stacks per upgrade. We'll talk about that. And the TC is slower, also a 280 movement speed hero. The neutral heroes that have a 290 movement speed are also getting slower to 280. Not as slow as they were in 1.27 and before, but 280 movement speed for Alchemist, Tinker, Naga, Panda. That's the balance patches for units and heroes. Now we come to items, as the circlet is back to the drop table of claws, Ring of Protection, Gloves of Haste, as it was for the majority of the time in Warcraft 3. Surprisingly, the Tome of Retraining gets the treatment of Boots of Speed and has a stock of 2 charges now in the shop. And there is, can you believe it, a new item in Warcraft 3 in 2023. The Rusty Mining Pick makes an appearance from the campaign. It is an item that gives you an incredible 1 damage and a 15% chance to bash. That bash is a little bit different than the bash that you know, because the bash that you know from the Mountain King has a 2-second duration on heroes and on units and a 1-second duration on heroes. This bash from the Mining Pick has a 2-second duration on anything. How this behaves, we'll see about that. The map pools have been updated. I checked the one-on-one map pool. The difference here is that Tide Hunters and Autumn Leaves are out, Hammerfall and Springtime included. That's the patch, 1.36.1. That is what Blizzard thinks we should have. So, first impression, Mr. Dondolare.
It's a very weird patch. Like, it's very weird. It's kind of hard to know where a lot of these changes are coming from, because I feel like there's a lot of topics or areas that all more or less agree upon could be targeted. I don't feel like they targeted or more or less any of them. Maybe Nerubian Tower, but we'll get back to that. I don't think it's a particularly good way to target it. But otherwise, it's like a lot of random fields out of left field changes. And some of the values are just completely insane. Like, no matter how you look at it. Just by themselves, they're just bonkers. There's also a lot of like nuances which how like the movement speeds of heroes change and what that actually does for matchups, which I think might also be a bit under communicated by themselves. But I mean, we can get back to that for like each change. But yeah, first and foremost, it's a very weird list of changes, I would say. Yeah.
So as a disclaimer, I think we should tell the people. I said before that you came up with a balance paper yourself with the changes that you would like to see, and you passed it around in the community and got some feedback and changed it a lot. There's like, I don't know, 20 iterations to the version we have now. We sent this to Blizzard, to the 2 remaining contacts that I have in community management. If that ever reached the team, I have no idea. But we tried to get the message to the dev team. And I think it was fair and not crazy and addressed the problems that we have. From that balance paper, there's very little in this patch.
Yep. I think there's basically nothing, actually. I mean, there's maybe 1 or 2 things, but also weird iterations of them. So, yeah. I can't even be sure that like they are from those suggestions because they've also changed quite a bit. But yeah.
So I think there's 3 themes in this patch. Buff armor or give people more armor. And that was a thing in the last patch as well when we got an absurd amount of rings. So now they increase the armor on the Crypt Lord and especially Devotion Aura. Like this Devotion Aura its buff is absolutely insane. I don't have any words. Like, did the guy who changed the values ever play against late game human? This is nuts. Like, do you see the need to increase armor in general in this game?
No, I mean, we already have armor meta in a way with the rings. Also, we have a meta now for human, because the one thing people immediately focused on here is Palo rifle compositions. Because I think there's like a camp of very zealot human players, high LMS, that really like that playstyle and they of course like that playstyle and wanted to be a part of the meta. But they're also, so they have like a big interest in getting that better, or like they want to see it more. But the one thing, I mean, like, that's the thing people focus on the Pal Rifle. But the one thing I'm thinking is fast expansion of human against Orc into Griffins.
Ooh, like in the old days of Melting Valley.
With +6 armor on level 4 Pala.
Holy.
I don't think you can kill Griffins. Like, I don't think, like, even with 100 foot blood lust army, you can do anything to Griffins at that point. So,
do you know the max armor value of a Knight or a Griffin right now without the Devotion Aura change?
No, I actually was about to put that down, but I didn't do it beforehand. You know, I can do it for like 5 seconds later. I can check, but yeah, sure. It's pretty high. It will be like probably like 50% damage reduction at least, I think, at the top end.
That is pretty crazy indeed. And this is also a change that, like, we will of course focus on the one-on-one part, but this could affect all game modes. You see it, you see a Paladin a lot in 2-on-2, at least the War 3 Champions finals, where he's a great support, and this is going to be even crazier. You see it in FFA, where Orc already has a tough time, as you said, to deal with mass air. So this will affect every single game mode in an absurd way.
Yeah, I mean, I think Todd can maybe correct me here, but I think a lot of people have mentioned already that in 4v4 teams, human is already by far maybe the most important or strongest race because of the auras, brilliance, and devotion.
Yeah.
And with this, it just becomes, maybe you have to go Pal a second, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Just maybe in 2v2 as well. I think 2v2 compositions with one human player going rifles with Pala, it's also going to be pretty unbeatable. But, I mean, I don't know too much about team modes, to be honest, but just, like, as a concept, I think that sounds kind of unbeatable.
Yeah. I like the development in the past couple of years where we started to value armor. I think it came with the Devotion Aura item change, where people started to notice it, how good armor can be if you stack it. We see it a lot on like Dryads now, when a couple of years ago that wasn't a thing. So armor in general, while it can be absolutely extreme on heroes with the current drop table we have, armor is in a good spot. You don't need to buff it. It is already really, really strong. And I don't think they know that.
No, I think that was pretty obvious with the ring changes, that like getting a +7 DH after like the first 2 minutes is insane by itself. Yeah. So I think they've already proven that they don't know how. And I also think armor means more probably these days because micro is just better. So units survive longer, armor gets like more value than they used to. So I think that's also...
Oh. I don't hear you on Discord anymore. Maybe we have to
especially like happy KO games, etc., right? So
we couldn't hear the last part of your sentence if you want to repeat that.
Well, yeah, I mean, you see, like, for instance, like in the Undead Night Elf on top level, Kaho's, like, DH usually survives at, like, 50 HP, right? So you have, like, dragged the whole armor, like, level means more than it used to be, maybe, where we're a bit more unprecise in micro. So I think armor also matters more just by the fact that players use it more, the fact that heroes are more survivable.
Good point. Then the second big thing that affects a lot, the movement speed change. Do you see a reason for that? Because I really struggle to see what this is supposed to address.
Yeah, and it becomes very complicated. So it's a buff to all heroes that are fast. It's a buff to Archmage. It's a buff to Demon Hunter, which is very weak at the moment. It's a buff to Blade Master. Like, it's a buff to all the fast heroes, it's a buff to the not so fast heroes. It's also like has weird implications. I thought of one thing. Human Orc maybe suffering a bit against fast expo play, so they try to do eco damage on lane with the fast TC with Aura. But Aura stacks percentage-wise. Boots of Speed is a pure numbers like bonus. So MK with boots now has an easier time to catch up TC. Stuff like that might make like this kind of like all these calculations very difficult. I also think like all Archmage against everything else in a DK now just becomes very hard to deal with, especially with boots. So yeah, I think that like those 10 MS might mean more than people think. It's kind of hard to know because it might not feel that much, but I think it will be pretty impactful. And I don't get it now. I don't see like what was the reasoning behind it.
You know what I think it is? I'll be super honest here. I think the reason is that the team or the janitor or however you want to call him saw that a lot of people want the balance back of like 1.27 before these changes. And I think also in Asia, a lot of people said it that the movement speed buff to these heroes wasn't that good. But they also didn't want to, they don't want to completely agree that the movement speed buff from like 4 years ago was bad, so they meet in the middle to please the nostalgic people who are crying for a 270 movement speed again, and just did this.
Yeah, but why only on certain heroes?
Because those are the heroes that were changed from 270 to 290. True. The others were never affected by it.
That is true. But yeah, but we already see the meta move back more into those like fast heroes becoming the starting heroes for, especially for Night Elf, I guess, with DH. But yeah, I mean that's probably the reasoning, but it does change the balance quite a lot. And it's very complicated to keep track of like everything it could change.
Yeah, I agree.
Probably the most complicated change by all, I think, by pretty good margin.
Unfortunately, we have to talk about it and we have to dissect it a little bit. So, Human is already a pretty slow army, I think we all agree, and a couple of people are very vocal about this. Now they're even slower. Like, why?
Yeah, why? And also they buff one of the abilities of the Mountain King quite significantly, or very significantly, but they slow the hero down.
Mm-hmm.
So this kind of seems like they say you should use Mountain King more, but just accept the fact he's going to get outrun by everything, which is counterintuitive, same with Paladin. But on the other hand, Human might get, like... I really wonder about Lich fast expo counterplay now. Or for those degenerates that like to play Cryptlord. Because it's going to be so hard to keep the Human from not just poking your hero to death, I think.
Yeah, I agree. That is something to heroes that are not a standard as a first hero, like a Mountain King, like a Paladin for some rifle players, also for Undead, for like there's some Cryptlord players out there, there's some Dreadlord players out there. Lich has become more popular. And it was cool to see more diversity. And now you take something away that benefited this diversity. That makes no sense.
And also, I think if you look at your sheet there, it's pretty obvious which race is a buff for.
A Night Elf.
Yep.
They're not affected at all.
Nope. So the DH is as suppressive as ever, and recently we actually saw a lot of MK versus DH first play, especially like Fortitude plays that. I think he basically plays that standard now. He goes MK first. I think this will make that a lot weaker, just by default. So, and the DH is already very overpowering, so yeah, it's an illogical change in my view, but it's also kind of hard to measure, I think.
Yeah, I think it's also, like, from a psychological perspective, Warcraft is a very taxing game, and it's oftentimes not fun, and being slower than before is not fun. Nobody will see these changes and think, that's why I'm gonna play Warcraft again now, because my heroes are slower. It's not an incentive to anyone seeing the patch notes to play the game. I hate this change.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason for it. I don't like it either. I also don't think it was a problem. Because, I mean, I think hero speed might have felt like an issue for the fast heroes already. With like, if you put the boots of speed on DH, it might feel like he's basically like Sonic, supersonic. But I never felt like people think, oh, Pala is so fast. What an issue.
Yeah, I mean, poor Remo. Imagine, this guy wakes up tomorrow, he's crying for a paladin movement speed buff for 3 years. And he wakes up and he reads the patch notes and Blizzard is doing the opposite.
Poor man.
Poor guy.
And this is a patch that's so weird they could include universal rockets, I feel. Why not? When they first do so much stuff.
I agree. Okay, let's go from top to bottom then. Militia duration, 40 seconds to 42.5 seconds. A lot of people want the old 45 seconds back. Now we meet in the middle. Good, bad, thumbs up, thumbs down.
What a big part of me playing human and having suffered so much from getting my fast expo wrecked. I want to say it's good. Actually not sure it is. I think it might be too strong with the current balance. Because it's one thing I really worrying about is human orc, where militia pulls are very powerful in the mid game and early game. And also against undead, militia pulls are strong. I mean, militia timer, I think people just think of this as this makes it easier to creep certain camps. But it also makes it easier to get your militia out of the way, so you can move them back to, and that's 2.5 more seconds to run back to the safety of your base with the high movement speed. I'm not sure this is the best targeted change. I included this originally in my own notes, but I got a lot of feedback from people that we already have a lot of militias getting called into mid-game fights, and this will be even more with some maps also being smaller than they used to be. So I'm kind of iffy on this. I don't think it's game breaking, but I don't think it's necessary in the current state of meta. Would be my idea.
I am pretty much on your side. I think human is in general in a good spot, and I don't know what this is supposed to address. So once again, just like with the movement speed, I think this is a change that a lot of the nostalgics and 1.27 aficionados would love to see, and they cry and they're very vocal about. So Blizzard saw that on Reddit and they think, okay, militia duration, it was that, it's now that, these people want it back, let's put it in the middle. Just exactly like with the movement speed, it's the same theme. Maybe I'm seeing patterns and I'm getting paranoid a little bit, but this is exactly it. If you want to help with the fast expansion and your expansion not getting wrecked all the time, I think we both agree that Arcane Tower is the thing to touch.
Yeah, my idea was that you reduce Arcane mana drain slightly, because I think the Arcane Tower is very powerful, but maybe reduce the build time a tiny bit, so you don't have to guard Arcane that religiously as you need to do now. That would be my idea of a better solution, because it's more targeted towards the fast expansion itself, and less for the universal purpose of militia creeping and militia defending in general, which is already pretty good, I would say.
Okay, yeah, so we're on the same side here. What about the bash bonus damage increased from 25 to 25, 50, 75?
This is on paper an insane change. I mean, It is just percentage wise, it's a 200% damage increase on level 3 compared to how it used to be. It's a bit hard to know how much bash 3 will ever get skilled though, but the thing is, it seems again counterintuitive to me. MK has recently become seen quite frequently in meta against every race now, actually. We see a lot more experimental, but also more standard MK play. It's not a pocket strategy anymore. It's more standard openings for many top human players. So I don't see the need for this. Why do we increase bash at this very moment? And again, it's a nerf to Orc and human versus Orc specifically. It's also a pretty big nerf to Lich first, because if the MK gets close now, and he's level 3, or no, level 4, and he does like 50 damage bash. That actually happens quite often. You get level 4 versus level 4 before the DK comes out, and before the second Hero of the Human comes out, if there's a lot of early game skirmishes. I think that this, like, I don't know, I don't get like the need for it. I think the stun is so good already that it's okay that's just 25 damage.
Yeah. I think there's a good point by chat. It might, especially in 1-on-1, not be too significant because the level 1 is the same, so it kicks in at level 4 because you always take Stormbolt. Yeah. It's better. At level 4, you oftentimes want to go clap anyway, so maybe it's not too impactful, but it could be. And it will be insane in game modes where you have a high level Mountain King. Nobody ever said Bash is weak. Like, it wasn't a good spot. Why risk it to become overpowered? I don't get it. I don't like it.
Yeah, and it's plus 75 damage. Like, the rare cases it gets level 3, it's plus 75 damage with a 40% chance. It's pretty, it's an insane damage boost.
Yeah.
And I do think level 4 MK will pop up in, like, just like if you go MK expansion against Orc, you might do a lot of chasing around the map and just picking up headhunters and stuff. You will get level 4 MK, not that rarely, and then it would just be a beast. You could just chase the Farseer to the end of the world, basically. Like, he has no chance if you have boots.
Yeah. I think especially, like, a Mountain King late game is one of the strongest heroes at all. I don't see the need. Once again, I hate it.
Wasn't MK the winner of a hero in the Remo's Hero Arena recently? So why do we like make him even stronger? It seems a bit weird, yeah.
Yeah. Devotion Aura increased from 2, 3.5, and 5 to 3, 6, 9. I think we talked about it a bit already, but this is
I mean, the values, first of all, the values are insane. Like, the buffs are 50%, 71%, 80% increase, like, for each of those respective levels. So you basically almost double the effectiveness of an already very good aura for a hero that when he becomes high level is already very strong. Palo Rifle is going to be an issue with this. Like, might actually become like a legit strategy against almost everything. I still think that composition has weaknesses for like the strategy compartment, because you can do fast X, but you can do like stings against it. But if it becomes online, you're never going to win a fight ever. And the second thing is just that the tier 3 human now is just going to be so strong. Level 4 Pala against Undead is going to be super strong. You might see more human players not go Divine Shield at all, actually.
Yeah, I guess so too. Late game human was never an issue. Getting there was always the issue, because you suffer in the beginning, then you stabilize in the mid, and then in the ultra late game, you start to dominate with all the cool upgrades and with the cool values you get from your army. This, I mean, yeah, it helps a bit on level 2, I guess, but it's getting absolutely insane in the late game, making a super strong army composition a lot, almost twice the value here. Absolutely unnecessary, absolutely uncalled for, absolutely insane. Don't.
Yeah, no, this idea should just be scrapped from the get-go. And I don't think they should reduce values or anything. They should just remove it, because the aura is perfectly fine. It's a very good aura. Yeah. It's probably one of the best auras in the game. It's just that you need Divine to get the Palette to survive, and you need Holy Light because you need single target heal. But it's still one of the best auras in the game. It doesn't need to be buffed at all. So yeah, I mean, it's just an insane change. And even if they had thought like this was a good change as a concept, the values are just like, why do you do 81% increases of anything? It makes no sense. Especially for auras. Auras are universal. Like, they're so good just by concept.
You know what? I think they played Need for Speed Underground and that song came up where it says 369 demo fine, and they thought, oh yeah, let's put that in Warcraft. God damn, this is so bad. And oftentimes when we discuss these patch notes, we think, oh yeah, that might be a good idea, but it's maybe a bit on the extreme side. So let's meet in the middle. We've done this so many times in the past years. I don't want to meet in the middle. This is nuts. Don't scratch it. It's horrible.
Yeah. think the general feedback will be that this is completely unnecessary, and I hope they really take that into heart. Like, I remember the first emulation that got introduced in 135. This will be like equal to that, even worse, I think.
Yeah, I also think it's absolutely game breaking. Don't. We discussed movement speed already. Any specifics for Mountain King Paladin you want to mention?
It's just like, again, like, it's kind of hard to get what they're thinking, because if there's one enemy of the Pala rifle style, it's the Demon Hunter, as Lemus would say in a different tone and accent. And now the Pala is going to get chased down even more. So, like, they seem to be like very insistent on we want to make Pala rifle and we want to make Pala more generally used, but why then make him slower? I mean, by far probably the most important thing for a hero in the early game is movement speed. It's just so important for like how the hero functions. So yeah, and the same with Mountain King. We're starting to see Mountain King again. Why make him even weaker? Well, ignoring the bash, weaker against DH on level 1. I don't quite get the reasoning there. It seems weird to me.
It feels like they look at this from a perspective where they nerf something and then they thought, oh well, then let's give him a buff as well to keep it neutral. But that doesn't like
they work in different directions, so it makes no sense.
Of course. But this is just a +1 -1 thing, and it doesn't work that way. Like, don't do that. We had pretty good suggestions for human that I would like also buffs before I get these haters riled up again. I'm all for some human buffs, but this is not it. This is bad, and we'll talk about that later, I guess. Or do you want to address it now? What the proposed changes for human were from your idea?
Mine were pretty slim, actually. I think my main suggestion was the Arcane Tower buff. I can't. What other did I actually? Well, I also had a couple of nerfs. Maybe I shouldn't say them unless I get sacrificed by the Cabal. But I mean, yeah, I think human is a bit hard to decipher currently because we've talked about this in other times. There's like few top human players, but humans are now doing considerably better than they used to. The main problem might still be Night Elf. And then maybe we should look at stuff that might change that specific matchup. Not like universal buffs to race that already does well against Orc. And from the stats, does pretty good against Undead as well.
So basically, to sum this up, our proposed buffs to human would be the nerfs to other races.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah. In a very simplified way. So let's talk about Night Elf, because the entire scene is talking about Night Elf, and we see a lot of Night Elf, so this is obviously important. Talents saw a new iteration of the unit just recently, where their crow form was changed from magic damage to piercing damage, and then we saw a lot more of the crows. That was cool. They saw play, especially against Undead, and we also see them from time to time in their old role against Orc. Blizzard thinks they should cost 10 gold more. Does that have an impact? And is that change all right?
I mean, so here we are to this like another topic. I can do like a small like segue here. It's like there's two ways to think of like when you balance. I would say this is Monk that gave me a good lecture on this. You have like breakpoints, right, where you have one value changing one thing by just a small number might change the way it functions completely. So a footman gets 10 more HP, might survive one more hit by a unit. That makes it makes the whole thing very different, even though it's just 10 HP. That's like a breakpoint change. We saw that with Peasants and Warden. So Peasants now at 10 more HP. You don't feel that much, I would say, against like a Lich or a Demon Hunter, how much that changes, but you very much feel it when you have a Warden doing a Fan of Nice level 3. Because you can now actually save most of the Peasants usually. Well, depending if you have anything to evacuate them, but at least before it used to be one Fan of Knives, one hit, Peasant dead. So that changed quite substantially, even though it was just 10 HP. This change, and the other changes are just numerical changes. You hope that in some, they might do something, but it's very hard to like know for sure. So you increase the gold cost for like 10. Does it change the build order? No. But it will make it 100 gold more expensive every 10th unit. Maybe that will make a heal scroll less available later. You might lose the game. It's kind of hard to know, right? It's very small margins. This is one of those changes, I feel like. It doesn't change anything in the build order. It makes talents very slightly worse against Undead and Orc. But does it move the needle against Orc? Probably not. It makes Night Elf slightly weaker against Undead to get into those talents on one base, which is already a big problem, I would say. So again, it's kind of it feels pretty not that impactful, but also a bad change in like at the same time. Kind of weird. So yeah, my summary of it.
Good. I am a big fan of Talents vs Undead. It is so fun to cast. It is challenging. We've seen it in Lawlight versus Happy just 2 days ago. That was almost picture perfect talent play against Undead from an entertainment point of view, where you have to decide how many talents do I build? Do I keep them on the ground? Do I have them in the air? Where do I position them? They're glass cannons. They're very powerful. They die quickly. But the good thing about talents is you can also rebuild them quickly to get to the necessary numbers again, where they are significant against destroyers. So if you make them more expensive, then you take that rebuild factor away, that it's easy to rebuild them, and then we might not see talents again, which was a super cool breath of fresh air to that matchup. And against Orc, really, it's not really as dominant as it was a decade ago. There's a good mix of strategies, and I would really like to keep it that way in Night Elf vs Orc, that we have a mix of strategies and don't go back to every single game is talents, every single game is tier 1. There's 3 to 4 different strategies now, and please just leave it at that. Why do you nerf talents? There's no reason for it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it seems like a change that could have happened 2 years ago, and people would make seems. Oh no, not 2 years, even longer than that, way before tier 1 actually. So yeah, I mean, it seems like a change way. It's actually like way before 127 even. So
didn't they make them more expensive in a patch not too long ago?
I think so. Yeah. I think that's true. It's kind of hard to keep track of all the some units have gotten a lot of cost changes and some have none. But I can check.
Oh, the cost was reduced.
They got cost reduced. They got a cost increase in 130 and then a cost reduction, and now like 5 gold less than the original increase. So it's gone both ways. But yeah.
Okay.
Back and forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get the I mean, it's hard because they don't give you reasoning, but I don't think this will be a good change for balance either, like just strictly from balance, because it makes it harder for Night Elf to get into talents against Undead on one base specifically, which is already an issue. Like, it's hard to get there, and if they get there, it can be powerful, but you usually never do. And the opportunity cost of losing them is now even higher as well, so it just feels like a badly targeted change.
We get a lot of subs, so thank you guys. We want to keep this as precise as possible, and then we thank you all at the end when we also read your comments in chat. Thanks. Yeah, so against that as well, let me go first with the immolation changes. And because you're an expert on it, you crunched a lot of numbers, so I go the general direction, and then you go into the specifics. Immolation activation cost from 1 to 5 is obviously a nerf. The second line I think we can pretty much ignore, as that is just an adjustment to it. But it was a problem that Night Elves could enable and disable immolation without any opportunity cost. Maybe they lose a tick of damage or something, but that was about it. And that was a little dull. That was a little dumb. That was a little too easy. So putting attacks on immolation activation in general is good, and it is the right direction. This is, I guess, the first change that I like, and now Dondo will tell you if that is the right way to address immolation and if the numbers are okay as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind it. I also agree that in principle that immolation has suffered from maybe the one of the few spells in the game that have no obvious trade-offs in this current situation, right? Because you could toggle it for killing a unit for 1 second and you just use a very small amount of mana, while other spells have a bigger mana cost. So that it kind of made it like difficult to balance properly. My idea was maybe to like increase activation cost more, but then also reduce mana per second. So it gets even more of like you need to decide when you're toggling on and off. And if you do it at a good moment and keep it on, it's even more rewarding. That being said, I don't think this value changes that much. It's again a slight nerf, probably even more against Night of Undead in the cases of fast expansions and Nerubian Towers. Because you can like trick the Night Elf into activating and then get him slowed, and then he has to like use more mana. I don't think it does that much against human, to be honest. Because against human, I think it's more common that you just toggle it and keep it on for longer. So the 5 mana doesn't matter that much. Immolation is a very weird spell in that like it can be very powerful and very weak from very like small changes in game state. I talk a lot. I mean, I've done so much data stuff on Immolation and try to calculate like what's a good value. I talked actually with a lot. Can I do that? I can put this in there. I think I talked a lot with Dice or RazerMoon translating Dice about this. I think he has a good point that the thing with Immolation is that it's very hard for especially human to do anything micro against it because the DH is fast and runs into you. And you can split your army away, but you can't do that and do damage to the DH at the same time with the army. So maybe it would like be a better idea if you actually want to reduce the potency of Immolation in a way is to make it so it has more of like a max damage model. So if like 8 footmen surrounds it, it doesn't damage the footmen at the same damage for every footman. It gets like a damage reduction, max targets or something. I think that was actually a pretty cool concept that Dice thought of there, which I think would be interesting to go. I mean, I think this is a good change just because I think it's weird that a spell has 0 opportunity cost, more or less. Like 7 mana opportunity cost. I don't think it does that much, but it's also a very slight nerf against Undead, which again wasn't needed, I think. So yeah, I'm kind of like, yeah, sure, why not? But again, like my ideas for Immolation changes have to be put in concept with also like changes to the Rubian towers and stuff, which we'll get back to. But so you can't look at Immolation in isolation because so much on gameplay currently depends on the DH doing damage in the early game, in several matchups.
Yeah, of course, creep speed, moon juice management, pretty much everything. So maybe I can ask you the question, is this change enough to help against Immolation for people that are frustrated with it?
No, I don't think they will see like any change because I think the main frustration with Immolation is when you get like you feel like you have 4. This happens on level 1, but especially maybe if the edge just ticks into level 3 on that like early pressure timing against a human, where you have like you feel you have 6 footmen, you have like a level 2 water elemental, but you still just feel like the footmen just evaporate because the damage is then like at that very moment before you get slower and you have slow effects on the DH, the damage is just so high at that moment, and I think. Or if they tell staff into your main or something. I don't think you will see any difference from this, right? It's still the same damage. It's just a slightly more mana use for it, but very slightly. So yeah, I don't think it changes that much for those that are very frustrated by it.
All right, so back to the drawing board. Blizzard, try again. Warden, we all, I think, said that Warden needs a buff. We want to see more Warden, because Warden is a super fun hero to watch and also play. But sometimes she feels a little underwhelming unless she's like level 7, 8 and above. So Blizzard's idea is to address Blink and Fan of Knives. Blink with a shorter cooldown on level 2 and 3. Finding a middle ground between 1.28, I think, and nowadays, it's not the crazy Blink with 1 second cooldown. Level 1 doesn't change, so do you like the Blink adjustments?
I still think that when you get to 2.5 seconds, if the cooldown is so low, it kind of feels out of place in Warcraft. Like, given the tempo of the game in general, it feels like very fast. I also wonder, this means that level 2 Blink means that you always have Blink at a shorter cooldown than a coil, right? For instance.
You could
theoretically, if you have mana, you can always dodge a coil. So I think
Lawlight
this change
world champion.
Yeah, I mean this change might be a lot bigger than people think, and the 2.5 especially kind of irks me, to be honest, because I think that's too low. 2.5 it becomes a Dota hero very fast at that point. Mm-hmm. I know it's not that often you get level 7 hero, but it's also the hero you're most likely to get level 7 with.
True.
So my main like idea of how to buff, and I also noticed that like none of the Night Elves that commented on my document never suggested that we need to buff Blink. Mm-hmm. So like it wasn't the thing they actually thought about. They wanted to buff either Jesus, I have to
hey, demonetize.
Phantom Knife's total damage share, but
you owe me $100.
Yeah, or do the plus 10 damage at the like level 3, because then it changes the breakpoint for killing echoes and peasants. But nobody mentioned Blink, so it again feels like a bit unnecessary. Is Blink a bad ability? It's like one of the best. That's also a very good ability, right? In my head, level 1 is a bit underwhelming with 10 seconds and high mana cost, but level 2 and especially 3 is just insanely good already. So I don't know. It feels again feels like unmotivated, and I also, even if they insist on keeping it, at least not with these values. I don't think 2.5 is good. I think maybe 6 and then 3 at max, but I still don't think you need it. But yeah.
This once again feels a little bit like trying to please the, what was the patch? 1.29 people. I think Blink was before 10 seconds, 1 second, right? So that change was like that. Those values were just insane. Like 10 seconds is pretty long, then you don't change it on level 2, and then it basically has no cooldown on level 3. That was bad. So they changed it to 10.7.4 is what we have now. And they want to find a middle ground again with the 10.5.2. I think every Blink has a little bit of a role. Level 1 is just to escape from surrounds in the early game. Level 2 makes you a bit more mobile. You can dodge more coils, bowls with it. And level 3 is completely insane. And level 4 isn't insane and isn't game breaking. And I definitely understand your point that you don't want a crazy Dota hero as the 1 second cooldown Blink Warden was in patch 1.29. I also think Blink is fine. No need, really. No need to do this.
No, I agree. We agree.
Fan of Knives. Max total damage changed from 300, 625, and 950 to 480, 800, and 1,200. So this is hard for me, to be honest, because Fan of Knives also has a very, very low damage cap on how many targets it can hit. So it's 455, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's 455. Yeah,
455 on Fan of Knives, and that's the weakness of Fan of Knives, and it's not the damage really.
Well, actually, like Fan of Knives, even with damage, is it's probably Starship, I think, said it's probably the weakest AoE, like pure EOA spell in the game. I think the values would support that. Like, it has pretty bad damage per mana cost if it hits everything. And yeah, so I don't mind a buff, but it's the one thing I really struggle again here is like, did they actually increase the amount of targets? And by what?
Think so.
The numbers doesn't add up. It's like 6.4, I think.
6.4 so, what?
Like, if you're gonna do the subtraction, or like I think it's gonna be like, because I would guess they just increase the max like targets and then do the same damage would be like the way I would think about it. But I don't think they just increased how much damage the spell can do and like didn't set a unit cap or something. It's kind of hard to understand because it doesn't. If I read the numbers correctly, it doesn't go into correct values. With the numbers now, I think you can hit a maximum of 6.4 targets for full damage. Which I don't think the game works like that.
I'm
not sure how they did it.
I can't really follow you here, to be honest.
Oh, no, okay, so Fan Knives have a damage cap now for 5 units, right? And that gives you the max damage of the spell. How much damage the spell can now.
Per unit.
Yep. Yeah. Well, yeah, you have a max damage per unit, and you have a total max damage depending on how many targets it hits, right?
Yes.
So those two interact. It's hard to see here if they increase the number of targets it can hit, or somehow else just made the max damage higher.
Ooh, okay. I'm in the editor now, and it says maximum number of targets is 0.
Yeah. So who knows what that actually means now? Does it no longer have like a unit cap? It's just it does randomly hit targets until it hits the cap, but then it still should be like some. So that means that after the 6th unit, it hits the unit for 40% of the damage. It becomes very weird to like actually understand what this means. I think they should just have increased the unit cap. It would be a lot more intuitive. But I don't know, like, because the spell has always worked with the unit cap. So if they remove the unit cap, it becomes completely different.
Let me see. Okay, it says maximum number of targets 0 also for Fan of Knives on the old patch. Yeah, that is really hard to understand. Did someone...
RazerMoon says this. Okay, so RazerMoon says the unit cap is from level max damage divided into max damage. Okay. Yeah. So basically, it never had actually a unit cap. It just made the unit cap was constructed by the max damage it could. So it's the other way around. It's not like you did 4 times X equals max damage. It's max damage. How much can that be in targets hit? So it will actually then hit 6.4 targets then. And then last target will hit for less damage. I think that will be the way it works.
That is like Carrion Swarm.
It's the same as Carrion Swarm, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So you
Thanks,
hit
Razer.
6. Thanks, mate. That is 6 targets for the full damage, and the 7th target gets 40% of the damage.
Okay. Well, yeah, or it will hit 7 for. No, it has to be. Okay. So 7 is working incorrectly. It's bugged. Okay, so there's something that doesn't work quite out there. We have to test this, I guess. But yeah. I mean, it's a significant buff if it's 7 at the end, if that actually becomes like a full 7, because then no, it's just 1 more unit. I think this is fine. The numbers seem pretty big when you read them like that, but you also have to hit all targets. It's a pretty weak spell already. I don't think this is a bad change in of itself.
It feels like if the problem is to hit as many units as possible, and that is your limitation, this should be then a great buff against Garks.
Yeah, I think this will be I think Baron is very afraid of this change.
Happy as well. Have you seen the Happy games with a lot of Garks there?
Yeah, that's true. So this will be a buff against Garks. Probably needed. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think it needs some testing, but I don't disagree with like the direction of itself. But I don't like the change with the blink in it as well. I don't think you need a double buff on Warden. You can do one thing, see if that changes anything. And I still wonder if this is more. Well, I think Razer and some other elves have pointed out this will be lot less impactful than doing just a slight damage buff on the level 3. So keep level 1 and level 2 the same per target. Because you still will have the problem that peasants and acolytes will survive more easily than they used to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Let's, okay, there's a lot of people confused by what this means, and a lot of people are going into the editor and figuring things out. So let's put this topic on the bench, saying that we like the direction and it could potentially be good. There's no huge harm done with this.
No, depending on how they implement it, and we need to test like stuff. It might. Okay, so Razer says this is okay now, so we'll see. We can. I think we have to test it. It might be something with the way it's implemented. I guess that's how it doesn't translate from the paper to the actual editor, which has happened before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, we put Fan of Knives on the bench. We will discuss it later in like the deep dive of Fan of Knives. Let's move to Undead, because we all know that Undead is way too strong. They win everything. The pie chart piece of the Undead is gigantic, and Happy wins everything, so we need to nerf it more. So how do they do it? First, they buff the Crypt Lord with Spike Carapace. I think it matches the Thorns Aura values now, and it gives a little bit more armor. I think it's absolutely useless. It won't do anything. It's still super weak, and everybody will go Beetles and Impale.
Yeah, they're still there. But the one thing is the very rare weird North Drakkar case. Nobody knows who that player is. True. When you get to level 9 or 10 Crypt Lord, I don't think he can die now. Level 12 armor and 45% damage return. And level 9 to 10 hero. Like, if the very weird situation to get a very high level Crypt Lord is going to be completely bonkers. 12 plus armor is crazy.
Late game heroes can be crazy. The Mountain King in this version is also super crazy. Blade Master, Demon Hunter is super crazy. I don't know. I think Spike Carapace is broken in itself as it is so useless.
Yeah. But I am always afraid of, we know this spell isn't useful, so we just buff it, a lot and hope that it doesn't break anything.
Good
7
point.
to 12 is, an insane change. And suddenly, it will... I mean, I don't think,
Plus
even
the
stuff
rings.
that are... Yeah, I mean, even stuff that is situationally very broken, but it's, super situational, we don't need to even introduce that if we don't need to, I think. Do we actually need to introduce a level 30 armor Crypt Lord in the very rare case it happens? Just... Can we
really.
just not do that?
Yeah, can we not just do that?
Reason.
This won't fix the issues, like especially level 1 Spike Carapace isn't really changed except 1 additional armor. It doesn't do anything to the damage return. This is it could be crazy late game when it is already kinda goodish, and it doesn't fix the issue that it has on low levels. So this is just wrong, and don't do it.
Yeah, and also you made the Crippler stronger in theory with the spell like one ability, but you make him slower, so he's gonna get kited to death from here to eternity by an Archmage.
Oh, good luck kiting against Impale, but that's a topic for another. Like, okay, we don't like it. It's an attempt to buff an underused ability. And you fail with that approach. So back to the drawing board, Blizzard. Necromancers. Raise dead cost reduced from 75 to 50.
I hate this change.
I hate it too. God.
I think necroplay, like actual necroplay by just summoning skeletons, is we have like a few. Warcraft has historically had a few pretty dumb strategies.
Yeah.
They're usually not very much liked. Farseer Headhunters was a huge meme. Mass Huntresses with Keeper was a thing in the past. Before, like, very early days, you had Beastmaster Mass Hunts. I would say Pile Rifle kind of goes into the same category. Like, you have stuff that is pretty easy to execute, very harder to counter, and, like, doesn't feel nice to play against quite often. Necro play with skeletons is one of those. It's just, I mean, it's not a good strategy on the top level, but it is annoying to deal with, and it takes like more effort to counter than to do. And I mean, this is Swarm Host or like in StarCraft 2. Why make like summoning free units a good thing?
Yes,
it's not a good concept.
I mean, if they are I want to say if they are expensive, then it's reasonable. But of course, free units are free units. Nobody wants Necro Wagon meta. It's a do-or-die strategy. We hate do-or-die strategies. The problem of Necromancers isn't Raise Dead. It's everything else of that unit. And it's super risky to do this, to get into a dumb meta with dumb strategies that just are unfun to play against, and to watch. So, no. Just no.
Yeah, I agree. It's... I mean, I don't mind trying to find like a way to get undead casters more into like the mid game, but I just don't like the whole summoning a bunch of units. It's also so punishing. Like, if you get like caught somewhere and you don't have this spell early enough, and you can just like hit one button, 50 skeletons, game's over.
Yeah.
I know it just feels like unrewarding in a game with Warcraft where you usually have like a lot of back and forth and. You can do a lot of stuff with very little, but here you can just get overwhelmed so easily if you don't like counter it perfectly. So.
Yeah. Cripple cost reduced also by 25. I seriously love the cripple spell. It's an amazing spell. It is crazy strong if applied. It was very expensive. I want to see it more. It might need nerfs if you reduce the mana cost, adjust the values, because damage mitigation with cripple is nuts. So that's a risk for sure. Maybe fine tune it, but the direction is the right one.
Yeah, I wonder if it like you will still probably only go necros. I mean, you still have that problem if you do you want to go necros for going necro wagons or going like for your skeletons, or do you want to add like a couple of necros into the mid game and then have like a couple into the late game for cripple or and frenzy? I think that like part is hard to put into the game for most top undeads. They feel they can't get like value out of it. I know Exord, for instance, tried to experiment a bit with frenzy like at tier 2 to make the Lich even more powerful, but I don't think he found that was worth it. And also I think humans more now, if they see any casters early, they go 2 barracks, 2 workshops, 1 arcane. So they get priest for some dispel. So I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with the idea. I think cripple is the problem is cripple is actually a very good spell. It's just it's like the human conundrum with like why make human tier 3 better, because cripple is actually a very good spell. I don't think actually it's even mana costly for what it does. It's just you never get master necros unless you go necro wagons.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I don't necessarily mind the change, but I do mind the change if they do the skeleton changes. Because then you will get a lot of necro wagons, and then you get the spell they also have, which is extremely powerful, becoming cheaper. So you have, I feel like you really can't do this if you do cheaper skeletons. Then you really can't do it.
I feel like
otherwise maybe.
Maybe there's a way, like the problem is how useless Raise Dead can be, because I always think human casters are pretty much perfect in the way they are designed. The initial spell is really good, whether it's slow or heal. The adept upgrade, I mean, obviously you don't need the spell if there's nothing to the spell, but this spell is oftentimes necessary, so it's a good upgrade. Invisibility is oftentimes used in combination with the Mountain King, can save you units, it's also a good spell. And the master spells are also, like, Inner Fire, we all know it's great. Polymorph can be super fun and situationally good. It's just very expensive. But for the Undead Necromancer, it's so weird to make skeletons on Initiate useless and give you an incentive to go for that. Maybe if you replace rebuying Rod of Necromancy with using the Raise Dead, that can somehow work, but it's odd. Frenzy is good, but also situational. There's no real big incentive to go for the Necromancer, really.
Yeah, I think that's the issue as well. And I think like the incentive becomes big if skeletons become very cheap or become, especially on lower MMRs. I just think this will be like a plague for lower MMR play and not that impactful for top level.
Yeah. Skeleton Mastery cost reduced by a lot. You usually go for it because you want the mages. I don't think this can do much harm. In combination, though, with the Raise Dead cost, there's another buff to Necromancers that we don't want. I think, in general, this is kind of good to cut the lumber, to make it more accessible, but maybe these two combined are once again insane and game-breaking.
Yeah, especially on lower MMR levels, I would say, probably. Yeah, I mean, I don't like it, not necessarily because I feel like Skeleton Mastery is like very put in a perfect value place now. I mean, it's not a common strategy at the top level and not seen as good, but I just hate the whole raise skeletons army for free thing. So for me, like the change, I don't like it just because of the concept of that kind of gameplay. But the values might be okay. It's kind of I don't have a lot of strong opinions on it because it's just such a, I don't like the core concept in the game, to be honest.
Yeah, so, same. 100%. Totally agree with you. This Raise Dead is dumb and shall not happen.
The next one is very divisive, I think. Or maybe it isn't.
I think people who think about it for longer than 2 seconds have the same opinion on it.
That's interesting. Let me hear your opinion, Neo.
I think it doesn't do anything.
No, it doesn't.
Right? So you are more eloquent than me. So you can explain to the unwashed masses who didn't think about this for more than a second, who might think that this is really good and finally the solution to the Nerub Tower plague.
So the main issue with Nerub Tower is slow effects, like by far. That's what people mostly struggle with. Because the slow effect lasts so long and is so strong, you will still be able to toggle several targets before the slow runs out. And I would say, like, even if you don't toggle targets, I don't think that is as common as people think. That even like Happy does in the middle of a fight, but you can just keep it on the hero and keep him permanently slow. That doesn't change anything. He's equally slowed as before. It is a slight. The main thing this actually does is just it's a very slight damage reduction from the Nerub.
That was the problem, right? The damage of the Nerub Tower.
33% tower. It is actually a tiny nerf to the Nerub Tower rush against Night Elf. Nerfs are very weirdly constructed and they do normal damage for some reason. So they're actually, for the low damage they do, they're not bad against archers or demon or heroes. Like comparatively to how little damage they do against everything else. So the small damage decrease might actually help. It's a 33%, so it's like substantial damage decrease, but it's also pretty low damage to begin with. It might help like the tower rush a tiny bit, but it does nothing to the annoying my hero is caught in a Nerub Tower and he's going to be there for 4 years and it's not going to do anything while it's in that Nerub Tower range. So it doesn't change like that concept at all. So I don't think this targets what the main problem I think most people have with nerf towers.
So, once again, they failed in addressing the problem. So what's the right one?
There's several ideas there. I think generally slow effects in this game is a bit too strong. I think you could reduce the slow effect quite a bit, both movement speed and attack speed. I think that might be helpful. You can juggle the values quite a bit and see, but it's insanely strong now. Isn't it 50% attack and movement speed or something? You can reduce that quite a bit, I would say, and it'll still be a worthwhile tower. I also kind of like the idea that some nihilists propose for changing the tower rush opportunity to make it magic damage instead of normal damage. Because it does less damage to heroes. Then the main thing I would say is like maybe mass nerfs against human is like suddenly strong. Knights take like 25 damage from nerf tower, but you can just reduce the damage again. The damage part of the nerf should not be a thing. Like it shouldn't be like something you think about. The slow effect is the only thing you should get the tower for.
Yeah.
So I think like you can do both. Like you can either just do one at a time, try to lessen the slow effects. Maybe change damage type if you're very you really want to strangle the whole tower rush meta possibility. And I think one or those two together will be a good start. I think we can start there. I think that will be like a better starting point than reducing the damage output over time, purely on everything. That seems like a weird change to me.
I think I sound so harsh, but they deserve it. I don't think they understand what they're doing here. I think they think that they fixed the problem with the slowed heroes for so long. And no, it's not the case. You got a paper from this man right there where it is described what to do and how to change it. So no, that's not it. Crypt Lord, Dreadlord, Lich, movement speed. I think we talked about this at length. We can just reiterate what we said before. We have decent first hero variation. This will make it harder to go for another hero than a DK. We've been plagued by 15 years of DK first all the time. Now we have variety. You make it harder. Why?
Hard to know. I don't get it either. It seems... I would maybe understand it better if they also reduce the speed of the fast heroes. Because at least then it's kind of consistent in that you keep everything. But yeah, just reducing some heroes that are already underutilized feels weird.
Yeah. And yeah, all right. Orcs. Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm getting a little angry. Orcs. We all thought orcs need help. Orc needs buffs. So did they do it correctly or did they not do it correctly? They address Blade Storm. The damage increase 110 per second to 160 per second. I gotta say, oftentimes when you see a Blade Storm in a fight, it is indeed quite underwhelming. It looks cool. It's a great spell, but you don't kill that much with it. So the direction is kind of cool. I am a little influenced by the Blade Storms I see in FFA, where it is a really strong ultimate. So, in a perfect world, I'd probably like a Blade Storm that keeps the damage to buildings that it currently has, but a bit better against units.
Yeah, because what you usually see Blade Storm in 1v1 is people going super lame and building 45,000 fortified towers and going solo Blade Master. Again, not very pleasant to face. And this will mostly be a buff to people that do that. Most normal Blade Master games doesn't get level 6, and even then you might not often have the mana. You can TP out, it's a bit different. It's a very big damage increase though. Again, the values here are, it's a 45% damage buff.
So how long does it last?
Ooh,
so how much total damage is it now? We should look this up.
I'll do it.
It's 7 seconds. So at the moment it's 770 damage. And now with the new value, it's 7 times 160. That is 1,120 damage.
It's 350 more damage, right? Because it's 50 more damage per 7 seconds. Or in 7 seconds. So yeah.
Correct.
It's a it's a huge damage increase. Like, again, the values there seems off, even if you feel like, because it's like when you're trying to increase something by your own, like it's like your first thought is like, let's increase this by 50%. Just feels, Remo says this. I think this is actually pretty true in most game like development as well. Like, you kind of want to stay within like 20% changes usually. I mean, sometimes it's hard because like 1 second, 1.5 seconds, kind of hard to go like 1.23 seconds and stuff. But yeah, damage values that increase by over 20% seems very big, like just intuitively. So again, like, this is super situational, but if it's situationally too strong, it's still annoying the few times it happens.
Yeah. I kind of like more damage against units, though.
Yeah, I mean, couldn't you start with like 130 at least at max? It's still a freaking big change. It's like, yeah, it's still
that's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah,
that is crazy now.
Yeah. So maybe start a bit slower with these changes.
They also reduced the cooldown recently, right? So, like, significantly in the last patch. So, alongside the lower cooldown comes now a big damage increase. Bladestorm will be sick. If this goes through, we don't want it that strong. This is a middle ground thing to me, a number tweaking middle ground thing. I don't necessarily hate the direction.
No, I just think the values might be a bit high on the top end there.
Yeah.
It's just my first intuition.
Yeah. Spirit Walkers, a unit that we don't see as often as we did before. In, of course, the golden age of Warcraft, it was always orcs playing the same strat with Raider Walker. There we saw them a lot. Then Shaman got buffed, and they kind of took over. And now Spirit Walkers might need a little bit of a buff. They get 5-second reduced building time and faster research time on the trainings.
Yep, I mean, these changes are might actually be pretty substantial buffs. It will help against Night Elf, at least, especially against lore play. It will help against Undead at certain points. Depends a bit though. If they go the Farseer Wyvern style, it doesn't do anything, of course. But if you go the Blade Master, and when you get you usually add like Spirit Walkers pretty late if you can survive to that part. And I think that's still a big question if you can't survive to that part. So it helps you get them faster and also become strong, like you get them stronger faster as well. So that will help. The one thing I don't think it changes anything against humans specifically. Maybe, but I still think Blade Master will be pretty bad. It's kind of hard to tell. It might actually make it useful in certain maps. Last Refuge, I think, is a map where some Orc players are already trying to do some Blade Master play against human. But the one thing that kind of worries me a tiny bit with this change, on the other hand, is like it very much forces Orc versus Orc to always be Blade Master, Spirit Walkers, Raiders. Like, you're never going to see anything else than that now, right? With this change.
Agree. Yeah. Okay, two big topics, the timings and the variety in Orc Mirrors. So timing first. The big problem of Walkers oftentimes is, like, we all think Spirit Link, great spell. Walkers in general, good damage, kind of tanky. It's a very good caster unit. They're just super slow. So the problem oftentimes is not to get the first Walker out, but to get Walker plus the mana plus the upgrade. This is now, so you have to keep these two combined in consideration, Walker plus Adept upgrade time. And that is a 20% buff to that. That's quite substantial. One might think this is a bit too much even. I can see why they're going that way. I don't hate it, just maybe you have to be a bit careful with that.
Yeah, and that trading times, I mean, are significant. 15 seconds times 2 if you go master is 30 seconds. I know, like, of course it depends a bit, like timings are different, but I know when people have discussed maybe we should increase the frenzy timing for ghouls a tiny bit because they are pretty overpowering.
Yeah.
Should we do 5 seconds, 10 seconds? Is 10 seconds too much? Like, we really discussed like that part. And now we do 30 seconds. It's 2 upgrades still, but I mean, it's a pretty big change. It might have like a bigger impact than one initially thinks. It still costs the same. So it's not that it's more timing based than it actually will do for compositions, but Yeah, I mean, I think this needs to be tested quite a bit. I know lore play has become pretty common in Night Elf Orc, and this will be a pretty significant buff in that regard. Would be my first like intuition. But I mean, we can test it out. I think these values can maybe be tweaked. I don't think it's a bad direction, anyways. Maybe
Yes.
I think I don't mind PTR changes if we are open to. We can tweak the values a bit going further, as long as the direction is good.
This to me, I totally agree that the direction is right, and these values to me as well. They scream, meet me halfway. Like 33 seconds. Is that a Blizzard number? Look at all the numbers, everybody. Is 33 seconds build time a Blizzard number? Absolutely not. They put this change in the PTR, so we say exactly what we say right now, so they can nerf it to 35. And they might do the same to the upgrade trainings. They put it to 50. We know it by now. We discussed these PTR things for 5 years. This is a middle ground thing.
I agree.
I was so happy seeing the next 3 lines after the walkers, because someone made me aware of how insanely expensive orc unit upgrades are, especially in lumber. The tier 3 upgrade I think costs 275. It might have been Scars who opened my eyes and enlightened me to this. That is sick. That is way too much. The upgrades for orcs, man. Nobody can finance this. So they address this. I'm not 100% sure what this means for example, a tier 3 upgrade. Is this just the first one, or is it for everyone so that the third upgrade costs 75 less? How does this work? Does anyone know?
Yeah, my intuition would be the latter. That's usually how they've done it. They did it with the Druids of the Claw Mana thing as well, where they say like, but it jumps over to the top research as well. But somebody can probably check.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I misspoke. Level 3 upgrade is 375, not 275. 375 lumber. Absolutely insane. So chat says that it stacks, basically. So the first upgrade is 25 cheaper, the second upgrade is 50 cheaper, the third upgrade is 75 cheaper. Right?
Yep.
I hope so. But Fork says it's just for the first one.
Okay. I mean, we could just check later, but then I think it should stack. I mean,
it should stack. 100% it should stack. If they didn't code it right, then they should. But this is great. This will help Orc in every matchup in a nice, not broken way. I love this. I love this. Of course, they listen, like, it was my idea, so of course I love this, and Scars' idea. I don't think this can do much harm. I think it puts Orc upgrade, it streamlines Orc upgrades a little bit to non-extreme numbers that the Reign of Chaos people put in 2002 and were never touched afterwards. Very good.
This is also one of the like non-breakpoints, just like value changes that also is pretty easy to scale back if it becomes too strong. Like if orcs suddenly start dominating, you can start just by reverting those values, see what it changes. This is a pretty universal change for the whole race, so yeah.
Yeah, I think upgrades, they could benefit a lot from upgrades, especially the armor upgrades that go for a lot of units. So you don't have 2 separate ones, but just one for most of the units. It is a little bit expensive in return. Great. Movement speed. Anything specific about the TC movement speed that we haven't mentioned yet?
No, I would reiterate the point about the MK with boots of speed. I think that's actually a pretty big thing, maybe. With the percentage change with aura versus boost of speed, that is like one flat number.
Yeah. Same here. We are no big fans of the movement speed changes also for the neutral heroes. Or is there any specific hero where you want to point something out?
No, I think this is like, I feel like it's universal. I don't get why slower heroes seem to be comparatively slower compared to the fast heroes than they already are.
Maybe since we rush over the neutral part, explain it to us, Blizzard. Why are you doing this? Put a note in the patch notes. It might make you look stupid, but at least we can correct you then. But you know, communication, never your strong suit, eh? Shout out to you guys. Items. Circlet is back at the Claw +4 Gloves of Haste ring drop table, where it always was.
It's very strong for that drop table, but it's also more diversifying the item table. So I don't know. Personally, I kind of wanted, like, maybe the drop table changes probably should have took a bit more thought and made me more complete. I don't like the ring meta. I feel like it's pretty annoying, but I also play human, which are probably the one that gain the least from it, especially in the early game, compared to especially against Night Elf. I guess that's where the frustration comes from.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't think this is the biggest thing. But of course, it's not like that much better that a DH now picks up a circlet instead of a ring. It's like equally bad in a way. So yeah,
I hate
maybe
it.
the drop tables need more work. Yeah,
I hate it. I absolutely hate it. Removing the circlet from this drop table was a really, really good thing. I understand it leads to the ring meta, and it is dull a little bit. But this circlet is so much better than everything else you can find there. It's unfair. It's just simply unfair. It's dumb RNG that gives you a huge advantage in the early game, and we all know how snowbally Warcraft 3 is. We rush for shops to get the circlet, and now you can end up in a game where the one guy gets the Gloves of Haste plus 15% attack speed, which doesn't do much at this level especially, and then you get another guy who basically gets a free level up in stats with an item. No, you were on good way. Just fine-tune that we don't see too many rings. The circlet was maybe a little bit too weak for the drop table. It was now on level 3, but it doesn't influence the early game anymore. We don't want early games dictated by the drops you find. It sucks.
Yeah, in a lot of matchups, I guess that's a good point that, like, you now use less gold in the early game. It will cascade pretty hard into, like, the later parts of the game, probably. Like, it's because gold means a lot more in the first 5 minutes, of course, than it does in the 25th minute. But yeah.
I can kind of try to reiterate that I want 3 different circlets with 2-1-1, or maybe even 2-2-1. I think 2-1-1 is probably better. This circlet in this drop table at the stage of the game where you find them is absolutely broken, and it sucks to have it back. Sorry. This is you were on a way to improve things, and you dial everything back 1.5 years, and we're stuck with the same stuff. Even worse though, because back then you had like a claw +5 or even +6 that even things out, at least between claws and circlet. Now a claw +5 doesn't really even that out anymore because the circlet is always better. Hate it, dumb, stupid, don't. Be better.
Yep. Agree.
Something I really don't understand, Dondo. Tome of Retraining now has 2 stocks in the shop.
I mean, so it removes the opportunity that you sometimes see, like, players actually buying the tome to stop the opposition from retraining. But I guess, like, I think there will be different philosophies where that's a good or bad thing that you can do that. I think boost of speed is good that is too, because I think that's just so detrimental if, like, one hero can just chase the other hero down without any, like, way to counter it. But this feels different to me. Like, a human player really like just going full camp against a orc player with, like, human goes fast expo, and he wants to retrain to that blizzard. I really like what Starbuck did, for instance. Like, he tried to postpone that switch by buying Tome of Retraining 2 times, actually. One time he used it by mistake instead of selling it. But I mean, I think that's actually, it's like a cool, I think shop control is like a part of the game. I don't think we need to reduce that even more. Yeah, I don't see, like, is it that much of a problem anyways? Like, do people really, like, cry over not having enough Tome of Retrainings? I've never seen that be, like, an issue. The few times it happens and you lose, you're kind of like, yeah, okay, good play, right? Or just unlucky.
Yeah. I agree. Like, I don't really know why that's a thing. Maybe it's other game modes and they were vocal about it and we are not aware. Could be a thing. I would really love to see this treatment for the Staff of Teleportation.
Yeah. if you're gonna do like those need to, it's because those early game items are so impactful, and you can kind of just like make it game design if you don't have it. I guess a Knight of Orc staff used to be like if you didn't get it, you were lost. I guess Undead Night Elf also can have like that.
Yeah, 100%.
That way it functions. Human players, we're not creative, so we don't use staffs that much.
I mean, I don't see that Tome of Retraining having 2 charges hurts anyone. So,
no.
Okay. But
it removes one cool strategical thing you can do every rare game. Like, he runs in and he buys the Tome of Retraining. You can't get clap. You have to TP out. And you take the camp. Like, isn't that a cool moment? We don't need to, like, do everything. Has to be, like... It's an RNG-based game. I like moves like that. I don't think that's a bad thing to have in the game.
I think I don't have a strong opinion on it. I think with the staff it can be broken as it was broken with the boots, so it was a good treatment. For the tome, I have seen it so rarely that I think it's kind of okay to have it. I would be super fine with not introducing it. I'm very neutral on this point.
Yeah, actually, like Duck's point that in chat that it's going to make you that you buy it 2 times more often, which is also annoying.
That's what people said about the boots, and didn't really happen. So I don't.
I mean, early game, right? You don't have that much gold. Tome of Retraining usually mid or late game. I mean, it's just like why.
It's your fault if you.
Yeah. I get it.
I have a pretty strong opinion on that next thing, though.
Oh, I do this too.
Rusty Mining Pick grants you +1 damage and a 15% chance to bash, added as a level 3 item.
I think this is completely insane, right?
I was about to say, this is a campaign item. And they're doing something that they did also with the Ring of the Archmage in the last patch. They put a new item into the drop table. And in general, I want to say, new items, oftentimes cool to have. Like, no, not oftentimes. In general, cool to have. If it's not game breaking. 15% bash, which is, as I said, people might be tuning in. It's a stronger bash than the Mountain King bash, as it is 2 seconds on a hero. It is a bash that you can probably give to a ranged hero.
You can. I think we tested already. Yeah.
This is absolutely insane. An item that you find very early on. I think this is game breaking. Can be game breaking.
This is super game breaking in a lot of situations. DH runs in to try to harass. Archmage gets the bash first hit. Does no damage. Game's over. Blade Master with a freaking orb and Rusty Mining Pick. I think they don't cancel each other out. Just like I think like a bunch of situations. Archmage, which was Lich, the one that gets it just wins the fight. Yeah. This is completely insane. Like, it will never work, I think.
I feel a little like a hypocrite here, because in the last patch notes I said, give us more items, give us more new stuff, pick something like a hero ability, a unit ability, put it into the game, widen the drop tables. And now they do pretty much that. But to be fair, before this is used against me, I was talking about charged items and not about permanent items, because you could have 25 minutes of bashes for free, constantly annoying your opponent. Horrible.
Yeah.
Like, of all the abilities that you could choose to put in a game, you use bash? Seriously? A disable? Really?
And I guess this bash works as the normal bash that it has pseudo random, right? So it increases more like that. It's not like 15% perfectly random. It's actually increasing with every hit, like the chance to get a bash. So I mean, yeah. And Lich on an Archmage, just keeping right clicking. Bash. It's gonna be ass. No, I don't think that's a good idea.
Of course, like with the Mountain King having bash, it's one hero with melee.
Yeah.
That can have bash. With this item, you can have 3 ranged heroes who all have bash.
Nice.
Insane early, insane late. Man, no, like, it's so sad because it's a new thing and we want new things and it could be cool, and then it's so dangerous for the game as an item.
Yeah, I mean, this is completely game breaking, probably in a lot of situations, and just yeah, it doesn't feel. I don't think it will ever feel pleasant to play against. I mean, Bash is already quite like an annoying ability, but at least as you said, it's on an MK melee. In MK also has bolts. You're kind of used to having to not like go into him. You kind of want to run around and like do. But yeah, this is just gonna be an Archmage with like a lot of range, just bashing over and over.
Do we know how the interaction is with stuff like crit? Could you get bash crit on the same hit?
I kind of would think intuitively that they work separately. So like you can purge and crit. Now purge and bash at the same time. Because the one is an orb effect and the other this is just like an eye. And I don't know, it's kind of hard to know, but because this is not an orb, I think. It doesn't work as an orb. So yeah. I mean, just remove it anyways. We don't even need to like discuss that part. Just it's terrible.
Seriously.
Get it away.
And maybe I think we didn't say this yet. Every patch that we get in Warcraft 3 could be the last one. Yeah. Unless we get confirmation from like let's imagine there's the big comeback of Howdy Pete Stillwell at the BlizzCon in 2 weeks saying, "Hey guys, we're back. We're gonna like every season is a new patch now," but we don't know that. Every patch could be the last, and if they introduce a bash item now, the game could be ruined for freaking years until they do Reforged in, I don't know, virtual reality. What do I know? But no, absolutely, absolutely no. And I think, is there anyone who wants this? I don't think so. Why am I always getting so angry with patch notes, Dondo?
Well, maybe your livelihood depends on the game. Might be. Just a random guess.
Yeah, I guess so. Just to reiterate this for the map pool, they removed Tide Hunters and Autumn Leaves, and they introduced Hammerfall and Springtime. Interesting that they removed 2 rather new maps. I like that they use Hammerfall. I would not think that they are aware of Hammerfall, of how new it is. And they did, so that's kind of a nice sign.
Yeah, again, counterintuitive, like some of the changes seem so off, like having any knowledge about how the game functions currently. And then apparently they watch, so they know Hammerfall is like competitive. One of the new maps are actually becoming quite popular. It's it's mixed signals to say the least.
Yeah, I don't know how that works. No strong feelings. I think Tide Hunters is maybe too established to remove it. If I had to do this, I would probably remove Last Refuge because it's one of the older ones. But I can also see that it's one of the most played ones. So not many people will agree with me. Maybe also CH could get the same argument. I like that there's variety here with Terranazin, even though it's not the most balanced map. It can be a fun one. Lost Temple, there's kind of a trend here. You could also remove Echo Isles always. You can also remove Turtle Rock always. Curious to see if they updated Turtle Rock like War 3 Champions did. I have 2 questions that should be essential questions for a patch. And I want to ask you these questions. Does this patch address existing issues in a proper way?
No.
Does this patch bring anything interesting that makes you want to play?
If you really like broken stuff, maybe, but generally, no.
And then maybe a third question to add to this. Is this patch dangerous?
Yes, extremely like dangerous is such a bad word, but yeah, I mean it is like for the state of the game.
Yeah. So those are the worst answers you could give the creator of the patch. In my opinion, to sum this up, this patch is 95% disaster.
Yep, basically. Which is a bit rough. I mean, maybe a bit better if like some of the values are tweaked, but I would agree in principle, yeah. It would be like a vast majority is disaster territory.
Cool. Blizzard, can you like please not patch before my offline event in a month? That would absolutely ruin everything. So yeah. All right. So community comments. How do we do that? Chat comments first, and then we go to a voice chat, I think is what we want to do. Oh, by the way, we just learned from chat. It's not confirmed by ourselves, but chat is saying that the rusty mining pick stacks. So if you have 2 rusty mining picks on one hero, you increase your chance of bash. It's not good.
No. I mean, you could just creep 1 green camp and maybe everyone just rush those camps, right? In the early game. If you get double, you get 25%. No, sorry, 30% bash. Level 2 hero. Yeah, I mean, we have fun early game.
Marketplace also. Like, rush.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Oh boy. Okay, so we didn't talk about what's missing in this patch. So guys, get your feedback in the chat. We're gonna catch up after this. In my opinion, a nerf to ghouls is absolutely missing. I would also like to see a buff to headhunters again, because the HP nerf was absolutely unnecessary and uncalled for, and it ruined Orc a bit, I would say. I would like to see a buff to Arcane Tower build time or research time with a nerf to the potency of the mana drain. And I guess that's all I want, because I think Warcraft is close to being in a very good state.
Yeah, I feel like balance-wise, those are like the obvious issues. Maybe I would add narrow effects. I agree with the frustrated Knight of Players that, like, even if it's not as common, the fact that you can do Undead Tower rushes feels a bit like it's not. Yeah, it doesn't feel natural in the game, and I kind of agree with that. Like, the trade-off is still a bit too small for them to do. We still can punish like greedy creepers with actually just going ghoul rushes and stuff and do damage. The tower rushes makes those like even more impactful. So I think that's like maybe the one more thing, obvious thing, and there's a lot of small things you can do in between there to maybe do like small tweaks. General, I feel like slow effects on there, but also slow effects in general are too strong. No buffs, no slow effect. I wouldn't even mind just a reduction in slow for the sorcerers either. So I feel like there's a lot of like small stuff you can do and try to tweak values, but the ghouls, you were in, I think you did like all the obvious things. Ghouls are particularly egregious, I would say. Like they should get a little tiny reduction in potency.
Yeah. And immolation as well. I kind of forgot about that. But yeah,
I think that would be cool to try a bit more. Like we can try tweak values forever. Maybe try a bit more radical redesign of like the max damage model or something like that would be more interesting. I think, because we really struggle to find the perfect values, and I think we might pretty fast make it completely garbage again if we do more damage nerfs.
Yeah, but as I said, you did a lot of math on that. You got a lot of feedback from different pro and semi-pro players, and it's in your doc, and they got the doc. It's really frustrating, man. It's really freaking frustrating. People are calling for a revert. I don't hate that idea, especially like there's so much in these patch notes that are just absurd to a way that we don't even discuss this anymore. Like the devotion aura change, mental, absolutely mental. The bash changes, mental. The movement speed stuff, uncalled for. Yeah, it's really hard. I got a little bit of feedback from the Hive workshop, which is good, because they look at very, very different things that we look at, right? So I got feedback that they changed a lot of the campaign. And now you might think, who's playing the campaign in 2023? A lot of people try to play the campaign. If you look at Reddit or the Battle.net forums, a lot of people would love to play the campaign. Maybe not for the first time, but I had a habit as well prior to Reforged to play it once a year. And now a lot of missions are broken. And apparently that patch fixes a lot of it. So at least that's good. I'm also really excited for the save function of multiplayer. It's not resume from replay, but it's at least we can save again for the first time in 5 years. It's a step into the right direction, but it takes us from Stone Age to Bronze Age.
I like that I said put back into the game.
Yeah, it was there in 2015, I think.
I think campaign is extreme. Like if they ever do like a proper re-release, not a re-reforge, I think that is completely out of the question. But if they do like a proper re-release of the game somehow, like get a bit hype around it, the campaign is extremely important. That's like what the new players will play first.
Yeah.
So.
All right. I got some highlights in my Discord. Let's see what we got here. Where is it? Where is it? All right, let's just move to the Back to Warcraft voice channel. I think we've never used this before. Where is that even? Okay, we go to the casting couch, Dondo. Follow me. So, at the Back to Warcraft Discord, there is a waiting room. If you have something to say about the patch, please join the waiting room and I will pull you in. And we have an open mic night for this patch. Are you kidding me? Is Dondo not on the... You don't have access to the room. Well, that might be right. Casting couch, invite people. Dondolare. Now he has. Let's see if that works. We never did this before. Otherwise, I give Dondo special treatment. And give him team status for a bit. Where is that guy on our Discord? Well, that is obviously not planned. Is he even on the Discord? Clicked on the button, didn't get it. Didn't get in. Okay. 1 sec. We need Dondo, of course, for this discussion. There we go. Dondolare. Roles. Team. Try again.
Okay.
There we go. You're a team member now of Back to Warcraft, as you obviously are. One guy who wanted to come on the entire time is SaveOrcas. And we get him on first. SaveOrcas is incredibly knowledgeable about the game. Also want to talk about the balance here. You want to... Wait, what? Can I not pull him in?
There you are.
There we go. I hope this works now and you're not getting kicked out again. SaveOrcas, great knowledge about the game. Lots of feedback about... What the hell? So this obviously doesn't work. We move to the Peon Burrow. I pull you with me. There we go. Nah, there we go. I think you're not getting kicked from...
Oh, you got kicked again?
What the hell?
Poor guy. Is this a power play?
Not really. It's a clueless play. Why is he getting kicked out? You don't know anything about Discord voice channels, eh?
There. My knowledge there is pretty limited, unfortunately. Pastor is in there, but he also gets kicked out. I think everyone just gets kicked out after a short while.
Okay, let's see. I changed some buttons. Let's see if SaveOrcas is getting kicked out now. I hope not. SaveOrcas, what's up, dude? I think you're staying with us.
That's great. Hi, guys. Good to hear you too.
You know a lot of this game. Can you introduce yourself to the people out there who might not know you?
Well, I guess I'm most known as a map maker. I'm one of the people who made the Echo Isles second version, the changes. A bit controversial, but many people told me it was a good idea. And Springtime is the map I made.
And I think the changes are really freaking good, and Springtime is also really freaking good. So you're a good guy to talk patches with. So what's your first impression?
I guess similar as yours. I want to encourage somehow Blizzard employers to keep working on it. I mean, I think the last patch was good, and I can explain why it was good. Because they introduced a few mechanics for each race. At least they introduced a few, tried to do that. So Night Elf got immolation and talents to play with. Humans got very cheap items at level 3 and some cheaper stuff, which was good. Undead got cannibalized, didn't work. Well, it could happen. And Orc, what did Orc got? Mirror image, right?
Yeah.
So it was a good patch because we had a few things to play with. This one, my take is we should make a list of good changes and suggest it for Blizzard. And hopefully they hear us.
So what would be some changes that you would like to see?
For which race? There are so many things.
Yeah, there are a lot of things. Let's take one per race. Maybe you said that was a good thing in the last patch, right? So everyone got a new toy to play with. So is there anything that you have in mind? New toys that you would like to introduce?
I actually do. So for humans, I think a good tiny change, but very good one, will be to make the keep and the castle grant +2 food, because humans have their food supply in multiples of 6. Their farm gives 6 food, their hall gives 12 food. So when they reach 48 food, they need 1 extra farm to make it 54 to use full 50 population range. So giving the keep +2 food and the castle as well would be very good for what? I personally think humans are not that weak, especially they have their strongest build is tier 1 expo. So we should encourage their tier 2 play, fast tier 2 play, and we should target changes that tier 2 play. They will directly should influence that, and indirectly they will buff also tier 1 expo play a little bit, if it makes sense.
Yeah.
I gotta say, hearing this for the first time, this sounds really good.
Yeah, so changes in that direction, I think, would be great. So that I can suggest a few more, but it's a long talk for human.
We should maybe have.
I'll invite you to my notes save, so we can make one together.
I think I have access to them. I've read your notes. They're good.
Okay.
Too. Yeah, I agree.
Actually, that 2 food change is interesting, though. I just, as a human player, because when Conceal, for instance, a map you kind of often do play 1 base. I notice when you play against Undead, you try to go 1 base. That 48 food thing is actually surprisingly annoying. So it's actually a pretty good change. That it's not like you immediately think of.
Yeah, and that makes you 50, and then you can make 5 more farms, and you naturally go to 80, which is a natural food limit, and it's easier for every player. I mean, amateur, pro player, to keep track of your what it's called, economy. Anything else? I need to think. Let's say I would like to have a armor rings to be reversed in some sense. I really think level +3 armor ring should be on level 2. Level +4 armor ring should be removed from the item table, and ring +5 can stay on on level 3 as it is right now. And for the circlet, let's look what we have right now at level 2 permanent items list. Supposedly we have level 3 plus 3 armor, which is not a bad item. In the long run, it's a decent item. We have claws plus 4. Many people want to make it back to plus 5. So plus 4, plus 5, that's debatable. I just want to say many people want plus 5. And gloves are fine. Circlet, you're saying if we move it back, it's a bit too strong. Indeed, it looks like you win a little lottery. I think it's not as bad as it on level 3. I'd rather have current circlet at level 2, so it's okay. But one suggestion that's in the air is to make it +1 to all stats and an extra +1 to the main stat. Sort of an elegant way to make it a little bit less powerful and reduce the cost by 25 gold. Like make it 150.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that's overlooked, that it sells, I think it sells for less than the other level 3 items, right? So it really feels underwhelming, but it sells for more than the other level 2 items or something. There's some weird values that they never streamlined. I also know that, like being a map maker, there's something on your wish list that you want for a long, long time, and that is changes to creeps and neutral units, right?
True. Well, we made a list, like you said, and we sent it to one address that we knew a long time ago was the Blizzard address for suggestions. And I think, well, we tried to reach them, but I don't think we reached them. Blizzard. So the suggestions we suggested, I will post them in the chat. That's, I guess we can ask for 2. First of all, reduce the movement speed for the few ranged units. It's really hard for players to re-aggro them because they target, they don't target heroes, they target your army. Mm-hmm. It's fine for melee, but for range it's a little bit more problematic. And the other one is about, let me copy paste it, sorry. About frost armor. Maybe decrease the effect from 5 seconds to 3 seconds, like the Lich one on level 1. Then we can use creeps that have frost armor easier on many maps.
So it was never changed when the Lich got nerfed, the creeps were never nerfed.
Correct. They have 5 seconds slow effect. So if it would be 3 seconds, it would be okay-ish, I guess.
All right. That's some good input, man. The people should listen to you. And you made the suggestion plenty of times that we should have like more talks about this. And I think now is the time. And we should definitely do it. And we keep in touch in DMs.
Yeah, thank you for having me, guys. Yeah, nice that we have a patch. Let's celebrate.
Yeah, I guess it's not the patch we needed, but we'll see. Maybe they can make something good of that. Thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, see ya.
See ya.
I think, can I like add a good general point here? I think is there's some people that think that only people that should give feedback in general are pro players. I think this SaveOrcas proves not only that like good feedback can come from players that are not necessarily pro players, but also it's very hard to be a pro player and also like think about how creeps function on a map.
Yeah.
You need like people that have like special interest or have like special knowledge about the vast different areas of the game, and everything will impact like the bounce state.
Yeah.
So just like as a general point, stuff like that is very useful for me because I don't think about stuff like that at
Same.
all. I keep like within the units and like the heroes and the races and just forget about everything else.
All right, we have the next guest. If you want to be on the line as well, it's open mic night, everybody. Join the Back to Warcraft Discord. I think it's !Discord. Join the waiting room. And next up, joining us here on the call is BiGMurphY. What's up, dude?
Hey ho, thanks for having me.
You have an opinion on the patch.
I do have 1 or 2 opinions perhaps.
All right, so a little bit of an introduction to you. We know you from some Back to Warcraft Cups, but people who are tuning in right now and don't know you, what are you playing and why are you qualified to comment on the patch?
So I think I'm in the third category. I wouldn't consider myself a pro player, definitely not, and I'm definitely not a map creator, so I'm in the third category, somewhere in between. I can play the game somewhat, but definitely not a pro level, I would say. But I see a few interesting things that might happen to people at my level that might also be a tad annoying, maybe.
What are you talking about?
So, as an undead, of course, I look at this mainly from undead perspective. I do have to say there's one race where I don't really have a lot of negative feedback. I think the Night Elf changes are actually kind of good. The Immolation nerfs are not that bad, and I think it's good to get the Warden a little bit up to strength again. The Druids of the Talon, sure, I can see that happening, maybe plus minus a little bit. So there I don't really have anything bad. In my head, I'm already looking at the human nerfs, and I see myself losing to every human playing Pala rifles every time. I don't even care about the pickaxes and bash anymore. It's just Pala rifles all day, every day, and I die inside. Because for me, that's already a big problem, and now it will get even more, well, bad. And with the orcs, I don't know if you're aware of a player called Woody Wood.
Yes.
If you're aware of a player called Woody Wood...
I have no idea what you're talking about, Murphy. Who is Woody Wood? What's he doing?
He's I'm sure, wonderfully pleasant player, but he plays Blade Master, Walker, Torrents, Bats against everything. And against Undead, it's, I feel, especially painful. And I have a little bit of a suspicion that this patch might make more Woody Woods appear.
Maybe he's the one doing the patch, now that you say it. He plays Walkers, it's buffed. He plays Blade Master Bladestorm, it's buffed. He could use armor like everyone, it's buffed. Maybe Woody Wood is doing the patches and not Remo.
It is quite possible. This does smell a lot like a Woody Wood patch.
That is good insights. As an Undead player, do you see yourself play Necromancers now?
I haven't played them that much. I have a feeling they do have a strong MMR cap because if people smell them out, no matter how much you buff the skeletons, they will be free XP and countered. I'm not sure how exactly that might work. I see also how people find that they're very anti-fun if they just spam necros. I'm not 100% sure. I do have a feeling, though, that this might hurt, especially at a lower MMR. I don't think this will necessarily hurt at a high MMR pro level, but I have a feeling that, like, let's say between 14 or actually everything up to, let's say, 18, 19, 20, 100 will really hurt because you will see necros everywhere, and until you are really good at smelling them, countering them, it will be horrible. And that's really hurtful for everything below pro level. And you have to need to be a little bit aware of the small people, the little man.
Exactly, and that is a problem for sure. And is that something that is interesting to you as an Undead player to play every game, a Necro Wagon Rush?
Well, I mean, as I'm on that border of MMR where I still have the vague hope of believing I could be good at some point, I try to not play Necro Wagon so much, so not quite as much, but it might come there if I see, oh, up to this level I can just beat everyone by just defaulting to Necro Wagons, and I don't really want that to happen.
Yeah. Is there something missing from the patch notes that you would really like to see? Maybe a little food for thought for the developers.
I do have to, I hate to say it because all the undeads will scream and shout. Nerfing Banshees a little bit Not a lot, but just a little bit might be really nice so that people stop playing mass banshees against human all day, every day. So I can see that actually happening to undead. It pains me to say so. And while I suck with ghouls, I can also see where people would like to nerf ghouls a little bit. Buffing orcs in general, I think also the headhunters really would help again to make them just a teensy bit more viable. Against undead, they're still somewhat playable on my level, but still making them a little bit stronger would be nice. I like the idea to buff orcs in general. I don't like the idea of buffing the Blade Master solo, just because I have played Woody Wood once or twice, and I would like to not ever do that again, if possible.
Yeah, I think that goes for everyone who ever played against him.
Yeah, but, and I mean, the human buffs I also find a little bit strange. I had the feeling that human was strong already with the last patch, and I don't quite see the direction that those are supposed to go into. I mean, I understand where they're coming from, but I have a feeling that human isn't so weak currently. And these ones will definitely push them over the top. Although they will change all the human play from Archmage into all the other crazy things.
There was some very good input, Mr. Murphy. Thank you.
My pleasure, my very qualified opinion, always to your service.
All right, dude. Take care and see you soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Dondo, we have an interesting guest lined up.
Same is the Scars, I guess.
That is Scars indeed, one of Germany's finest orcs. We all are aware that orcs need a little bit of help, and we all miss the Farseer Headhunter meta, and this guy is the epitome of that. Scars, what's up, dude?
Yo, what's up?
You said you're, I don't know the wording, but you said if you want me on for some rage, here you are, here's your stage.
Yeah. So basically what I think about the patch, or what my first missing expectation were putting into words, were like, we are like going through a tunnel and we are finally seeing a light, maybe a new patch, a way out of the daily torture and so on. But sadly, this patch is not the end of the tunnel, but just another train just crashing into us and just moving in a different direction again. So yeah, it feels so random, the changes somehow, especially like the 90% aura buffs and so on. So yeah, I have the concern that since the strategy in the last patches were like, okay, we are doing like major buffs in numbers and then we just reduce it and then it will be fine, I guess. But they presented this time changes that by default were in the wrong direction and with crazy numbers. So people might think first like, okay, maybe the devotion aura buff is too high. Maybe, I mean, it's definitely too high, but maybe it could deserve a buff. But here we have to be strong and say no. It's just in general wrong, and we should not be tempted to say, oh, maybe +1, +2, +3. I mean, obviously not +9. So that might be, a bit crazy. And obviously there are some, major changes not being, respected at all. So the Ghoul Frenzy, nerf, the Headhunter buff. The two most obvious, I guess.
Is that what could save orcs, like bring the headhunters back to a solid level?
I think it's kind of needed. Like in my small analysis of the current state of Warcraft, it's really about expanding, and especially especially the human tier 1 expansion got buffed, and the undead expansions are like way more frequent than in the past. And even though I don't deny that the orc expansion got buffed, it's still a tier 1 counter expansion more than a fast expansion, because orc as a race is still missing like the defensive structure of like early expo, like Night Elf, can just place the expo in a safe place and creep it afterwards. Undead has the Nerub Tower, and Human has just the really, really fast expansion with the Arcane Tower, and Orc just need a Warmel for the tower, and it's still like in the opportunity cost to cancel Orc expansion early game are just not high. Like you just click on the expo, TP out, and basically Orc is just that doesn't get anything in exchange. Basically, maybe a footman or an archer or something, but not really much. So it's still like a tier 2 expo, I would say. Yeah. So the basic mistake of last patch is in that conclusion that the Orc race really relied on harassing an early game, and especially harassing against expo play, and that got like not only nerfed but basically deleted out of the game with the Headhunter HP nerf. So Orc just feels in a really weird stage against expo play because you don't have the fast counter expo, neither you can harass properly anymore against expo play, and that's just like the weird stage.
Yeah, I think we were all pretty confused when we saw that change in the last patch, and now I'm also confused not seeing the HP given back. But there are some other buffs. Walkers are available a lot faster. Is that anything that helps you?
I think so. Yeah. So according the actual buffs presented in the patch, I think they are really nice, especially the upgrade buffs. I really like it. They are like supporting macro play and just fix something that was under the radar for a long time, or like maybe even now, and the first time people realize now how expensive the upgrades are.
Yeah.
And especially like the Walker unit is fine. I mean, it's good against Night Elf in many situations, and against like MK Fast Expo. So I think it helps. Maybe the numbers are a bit too high. Maybe it should be like I think the Walker build time is actually maybe even fine with 33 seconds, but maybe like the Spirit Walker depth training could be like, I don't know. 50, 55, just a tiny bit less in numbers, and it's fine. So the other changes, I like it. The Bladestorm is weird change. I mean, I like the idea of buffing it somehow, especially because there are matchups, like for example Orc versus Night Elf, where you feel like, okay, the level 6 Demon Hunter is doing a lot, and my level 6 Blade Master is not doing so much. So maybe it's a new winning condition. But also here, probably, like Dondo said, the lovely Dondo, just reduce the numbers a bit, because it's just percentage-wise too good, or the increase is too much. So overall the buffs are okay. I just see the big disaster in the changes of the other races that influence the matchups, of course, and the missing Headhunter buff. And overall an idea of mine, which, I mean, it's not really like a very special idea, but I feel like Warcraft 3 lost a bit of the charm of the speed auras. So even though it's controversial, I would say, especially in Warcraft 3, where the armies are blocking each other like hell, and where boots of speed, like on Demon Hunter MK, basically can catch every unit no matter the aura. The playstyle, or the advantage the speed aura in terms of movement speed gives you is it just doesn't apply really to the feeling of the game anymore. And I would love to maybe buff the speed auras again, and to apply a more race specific gameplay. Also, it would change maybe the feeling of the red spot items, so that you actually realize again that your army is faster. So yeah, especially because Warcraft is a clumsy game, and boots of speed are like more common than before, I would say. Like not like really in the past, but like a few years ago. And after a TP or something, the heroes can catch your army pretty easily, no matter you have endurance or level 2, for example. So yeah, especially also because of Sorks, but also Dryads on the Night Elf side. So you have faster units and faster heroes, even though you have the army with endurance aura, and that kind of feeds off.
So you would say that faster units in general are more fun, and now they nerf half the heroes to a slower movement speed. That kind of contradicts each other.
Yeah, first of all that, and second, the encouragement of buffing speed auras like DK and endurance aura, the hero aura plus the items again.
Yeah. Okay.
I think we were limiting the playstyle here, and the feeling of the game just didn't. You just don't feel the speed aura anymore. So
I guess the Night Elf and humans would probably disagree as long as they don't find the item, especially the humans.
Yeah, I mean, the question is, do we want races to be all equal, or races with, of course, some proper, unique playstyles? And I feel like we should encourage the difference of the races and not make it all the same.
All streamlined, yeah.
Yeah, and
that is a point that I've heard not only from you now, but also from a lot of Asian viewers and players as well. So you're not the only one.
I really want to point out, like, Warcraft is a clumsy game. Like the path finding, the units blocking each other, it's really, really clumsy. And the nerf on the speed auras just make it like that even though you have the speed aura, your units get caught. So it's just for me a bit too bad at the moment.
Do you have any comments on that, Dondo, or any questions to Scars?
I kind of both agree and disagree with the speed auras specifically, but I mean, the racial identity thing is an interesting question in general. Maybe the speed aura thing got more prevalent because they also increase hero movement speed. So that's probably like why that became pretty obvious at a certain point that it became strong, right? Because you used to have slow heroes that got some compensation for movement speed auras, and then when the TC now also became faster with an aura, the laming style might become like a bit too strong or a bit too like decisive. But I mean, also I think just from like a balance perspective, it's an interesting change. It could probably work, but you need to do a lot of tweaking. For instance, like Undead Night Elf is already, numbers would suggest pretty Undead favored at the top level, and then with the faster Undead army, everything gets more complicated to balance out. But I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with it. I think it was good that it got nerfed when it got nerfed, because of the battle situation then was like Undead was extremely dominating in all matchups. I think at that time, maybe not against Orc actually, but the aura was an important part of that, because I mean, happy with a big aura is pretty scary in general, and they want to zero as well. But yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with the principle of having more different playstyles. And I do agree that one thing I would agree with is that auras in general now, speed auras, feel a lot less impactful. I do agree that sometimes they don't feel impactful at all. The one thing I'm scared when I made an orc army is not the aura, it's the speed, the scroll speed. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I kind of listen. But the one thing I think is difficult is like those changes are so big. So you gotta tweak a lot of stuff at the same time, and that's where I worry about the game knowledge that is communicated through the patch notes. Like, how do we tweak this stuff without like completely dismantling everything at the same time?
Yeah, I agree. Like, especially the matchup Undead versus Night Elf is worrying me a bit, even though I don't play the races, because I feel like there are some changes that are important, but that they don't apply to this matchup in the sense that it makes it better but worse. For example, I feel like the Panda is also a hero that is under the radar for the last 4 or 5 patches. And I think he needs a nerf either in like damage output through the Breath of Fire or in like stats that he got, I think, +2 int a few patches ago. And I think that's just stupid. On the other hand, I obviously see the point that the Panda is needed against Gargs for the Night Elf versus Undead matchup, which is hard to play already for the Night Elves. So in my perfect, the perfect future would like to, which is pretty hard of course, to find a way to buff like a Night Elf hero or Night Elf unit naturally against Gargs to make, to be able to nerf the Panda without nerfing Night Elf in this matchup. Maybe the Warden could be an answer, even though it feels a bit weird to rely on the first hero choice to play a strategy you don't know beforehand, of course, which is a bad idea in my opinion. Maybe we have some high IQ person in chat or somewhere that can think of a buff for Night Elf versus Undead exclusively. Maybe Hippos in their, I mean, in their natural form, like not the Hippo Archer, but the Hippogriffs. So they trade better with Gargs. Of course, the problem is that they can't creep, I guess. Yeah, I'm
thinking of like stuff
hard
like
to think of.
Some Night Elves mentioned like stuff like you can think a bit outside the box, so like Garg movement speed, stuff like that. So you can't run away. You have to, like, they're more Hippos would in small numbers before auras and everything upgrades are online would beat Gargs, but they usually can't chase them very effectively. So maybe like stuff like that is also, there's like probably a lot of dimensions you can handle that specific issue.
Yeah, also like a Garg nerf could be a possibility. Like, I feel like Gargs are only really meta against Night Elf, but they are really strong. So it's also, it's hard, or like it's another philosophy of like how to balance a game. I feel like if a unit is strong and really strong in one matchup, but not played in the other, it's still a problem. So maybe we should just accept for the next patch that Gargs are used in one matchup and that it should be balanced. So just nerfing Gargs in that matchup, but also then like nerfing the Panda overall a bit, because Panda is just a Tavern hero, which is valuable for everyone and especially strong for Night Elf in many matchups and for human in many matchups. And I don't really like the idea of a Tavern hero to scale that well and just to be not like specific enough, because I feel like every Tavern hero has its specific use case, and the Panda is just too good as an all-rounder hero, and therefore the no building time is just too good in my opinion. So nerf the Panda somehow.
Nerf the Panda. All right, I got one last question before I let you go and get some other some other person on. If the devotion aura stays the way it is in the patch notes, how do you beat Griffins?
I mean, that's not the only question. Like, how do I ever want to touch the game anymore is like the more accurate question, because as I said, like in the beginning, the dangerous aspect of this balance change is not that we will ever see it live as it is, but even this maximum approach of buffing it, resolving a small buff is also the real danger. Yeah. Like, obviously, +9 is too much. Oh my god, let's make it +7. No, that's the real danger, actually. Yeah. So let's not be too naive, even though it's Blizzard, and say they will make it +9, but keep the really analysis and the harsh eye on the fact that it should stay actually the same and not get a buff at all, because Paladin is a really good hero and Devotion Aura is really strong, Armor is really strong, Auras in general are really strong. You shouldn't buff it.
Pretty much exactly what I wanted to hear from that question. All right, dude. Thank you very much for your input. Really good to hear from you. Now I'll let you go to rage again in private. Thanks, mate.
No. Yeah. Have a nice one. See you.
Take care.
Yeah.
All right. Next one. Next one on the line. He's waiting for a long time. 418. What's up, dude?
Hey, how's it going?
Well, reading the patch notes, not too great, but what do you think of it?
Well, I'm mostly a 4v4 player, so my perspective is going to come from 4v4. First things first, the Paladin aura is insane.
Yeah, it is.
Speaking, and again, speaking from 4v4, a lot of human players will get level 3 Brilliance on a level 5 Archmage, but this massively incentivizes level 3 aura on a level 5 Paladin, but nobody picks aura on a level 5 TC or a level 5 Dreadlord or a level 5 Death Knight. And the only reason you do it on a level 5 Priestess is because her other 2 skills aren't that good.
So, would that bust 4 and 4 and make the Paladin like a must-have hero?
I mean, he kind of already is a must-have hero. He really just, his job is to, like, you know, heal the big target, you know, the TC, the Mountain King, the pandas in the game. But I mean, when you get into the late game battles and you have the big 8-player fights, it's so important to have like Brilliance aura, because like as an Orc player, like Orc has terrible mana regen, so having an ally with Brilliance, it's such a critical resource to have. And I feel like now with the Paladin, like 9 armor is insane. But I mean, a lot of people have said that. I'm a big fan of the wood reduction for the Orc upgrades. I like the Spirit Walker buff. I feel like Necros can be kind of common in 4v4 if there's not a viable counter like Destroyers. But then, you know, sometimes Walkers become the most viable counter. But listening to Scars just talk about the move speed buff or nerf for all of the heroes, in a vacuum, I feel like I'm okay with like all of the slower heroes getting a 10 movement speed decrease, like your Mountain King, Paladin, TC. But what I was thinking is, I feel like it's going to bring back the automatic boots of speed meta that everybody did like 10 years ago. Like, I found it so annoying when it turned night and then here comes a Blade Master or a Demon Hunter with boots, and it's like, okay, now you're going to right click my hero, now I have to go buy boots, we're both 250 gold cheaper, and I don't feel like anything was accomplished.
It's a pretty good point, actually. Yeah. Because it really doesn't change anything, right? If both have boots.
Yeah. One thing I would like to see, I mean, everybody's mentioned things like ghouls, headhunters. I'd like to see the Fire Lord improved.
Hell yeah, how would you do it?
Incinerate is 6 mana, which that's the same as Black Arrow. It's obviously not as good as Black Arrow. I want Incinerate to be 2 mana. I want his summon, I don't know if it should split after fewer attacks or if it should be able to split from buildings. I feel like that might make Tower Rushes a little more viable, but it's obviously not as good as Water Elemental or the Beastmaster Bear. I like Remo's buff of making Soulburn able to be a buff on allied heroes, but I don't know. I feel like he's not a very good hero. He's kind of a meme other than like an orb carrier or just dabbing on somebody.
Yeah, I think with Firelord, you're kind of stuck with either having to do a pretty big redesign if you want to make him more of an all-round hero, or you have to like lean even more into the niche. Like, so now he's like a good push hero, or he can be a decent orb carrier, but he's pretty horrible as an all-round hero. So if you're going to do all-round, I think you need to do like big changes, maybe a complete redesign. But you can also go the other way and say like, for these specific use cases, it's extremely good. But so then you can like buff what he already has, I would guess. Like that would work mostly towards that reason. I do worry a bit like if he becomes even just a tiny bit too strong. Like, let's say Headhunters get HP back, and you buff Firelord just a tiny bit. The amount of, like, Firelord-related Tower Rushes would just be insane, I think, especially on maybe a bit lower MMRs. So, but I do agree that, like, the Firelord still feels like an undesigned hero. It just feels like an afterthought.
Yeah, I remember when the Fire Lord first came out and Incinerate was free and automatic. Like, okay, that's too strong, but 6 mana, he doesn't have any mana pool. I think it should be 2 mana, maybe 1. And I don't know, maybe buff it some other way. But I also like Remo's Incinerate Burn. And I like the Crypt Lord buff. I like the Warden buff. Shout out to Human King Tom, Paladin Rifle Master. He'll love the Paladin change.
All right, then I got one more question for you here, because the others are waiting there as well. If this goes through, or looking at the patch notes, are you more excited or are you more worried currently about the state of the game?
I kind of like it. I like the Spirit Walker buff. Like I said, I'm an Orc player and I play 4v4. I like that Bladestorm can viably knock down towers. I like it, but I can understand why other people don't.
That sounds pretty reasonable, mate. Thank you very much for coming on and to give us a little bit of a 4-on-4 perspective on things.
Thank you.
Take care, dude. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, so we have the chance to pick Kevin or RazerMoon. Who do we pick? I don't know who was first.
Kevin was there first, not to disregard my boy RazerMoon either, but I think Kevin was there.
And it's also later for Kevin, so... former vice German champion representing the Night Elf race. I'm not too sure if it's actually him, because he was known as Kevin Warcraft 3, but now we invite a Kevin here. Is it you, Kevin? Is it you, the former vice German champion?
Hi. Yeah, it's me. It's actually me.
Thoughts on the patch, dude?
Me. Yeah, I was really excited when I saw that we had a patch, but I have to agree on many points that were mentioned before, so I tried to not make it too repetitive. But I think it's overall water bowing. I don't know. I think a lot of potential that's obviously there was not used at all. We have some changes that are cool. Okay, we can talk about that. If some stuff has merit and a lot of stuff seems just like we move some numbers around and it won't really affect a lot. I mean, on the top level, we can discuss about 15 lumber here, 20 lumber there, but I think there's two things you can do with such a patch, and especially for such an old game, and one is fix imbalance, which I don't think we have the biggest issues. Obviously, we can improve some matchups, but you can also make things more interesting, and I think the patch particularly lacks in that regard, because we can always switch numbers, but if they don't go into the right direction of making things a bit more interesting, I think it's bad, and there's nothing really creative here. So that's what I don't like overall.
So you think the game will be less exciting with the patch? Or you just need a like shot to the arm with some new toys to play with?
I think rather the second point. I think we have, like compared to some years ago, we have quite a diverse meta, I would say, in almost every matchup. But there's still a lot of units, that you don't really see. Some stuff like Warden, I would love to have it back. You have a lot of matchups that, I don't know, evolve around maybe like one specific build, which I don't like, and maybe that's also something you could always consider, just try to make the game as versatile as possible.
But you have some Warden changes, so that's not the right direction?
I think, well, when we go to the changes, I think the Warden change is extremely nice. We'll see which numbers work, but I would love to see the Warden. I was afraid that just like Undead Expo will always be too good against it, but I saw Moon try Warden first with Fan of Knives, and that didn't really work, but maybe a bit more damage will just do the trick, and I think Warden could be really exciting against Human and against Undead, and yeah, I think a lot of elves will gladly accept a Demon Hunter nerf in return. I think that's excellent. I think it's a point that should be addressed, because I think Warden can really create like magical moments. Why would we miss out on that? Can always try to make it balanced. And apart from that, well, obviously, I think the Demon Hunter nerf has merit. I don't think you should have a mechanic that's basically risk-free. You just click it on, and especially something that's risk-free, that's really effective, and that makes your opponent react so strongly. Like you press immolation, then you just cancel it risk free, and then your opponent needs to move away. Can't surround you anymore. It's just, I don't know. It's like low risk, high reward. I don't know. It just doesn't really add up, I think. So yeah, especially when you consider the wings as well that we had. So yeah, just nerf it a bit. We'll probably do a good to the game really some favors. I don't think the Narup Tower fixed or change does anything against the issues that we have, but I think that was addressed. I think you need to tackle the problem differently, because when is the Narup Tower really a problem? It's in the beginning of the game, so what do you want to do with this half a second? If you can slow the two most important units, it really won't do anything. If you play Demon Hunter, it doesn't matter. I mean, not the archers are the issue. You can kill them anyways with Aura and ghouls and skeletons and whatnot, but if you just slow down 2 Treants and the Demon Hunter, yeah, then your expo gets through. Then we have other issues. And I'm not the biggest fan of these movement iterations. I don't know. I have a hard time judging it because I wasn't too active when all the movement speeds were like a lot different. But I'm just, for example, afraid about Lich Expo. I don't think it's that safe or at the moment. And now you have the Archmage that's a lot faster than the Lich, if I saw it correctly, and might just get clicked down. So I'm really afraid there. I mean, you already have situations where the human just creeps and can send the Archmage on the other side of the map, and the Undead is in trouble. So it's really easy to lose a game early on or to get ahead as the human sometimes. So I don't think that adds a lot. Maybe some risks for the Undead that I don't think are justified at the moment. I like the Orc Changes. I don't think Orc is too good at the moment. It's pretty cool. But again, here I think we change things and that are kind of okay-ish. But as Scar said, why not just, I think, make it more interesting? Change something with the FS, change something with the bottom, change something maybe, I don't know, with Claves, change something about triple equipped Gargs to make it less strong in that matchup. Maybe focus on things that you only see in one matchup so that you can at least make that interesting and without affecting the other matchups. And there are some things that you mentioned, but I think we miss out on a lot of things, and especially considering what you said, that you sent suggestions and that they basically ignored them is not a good sign. I don't know. Like, it's not creative and they ignored what they got.
Well, to be fair, I never know if it reached the dev team. I sent it to community managers, 2 of them, but I don't know what happens in the middle. So
they could reach out in field before doing something, you know.
Yes, yeah, 100%. Like, this is I was always very positive when a PTR dropped, and I was like, thank you, it's so cool to have these patches. But if they don't reach out and they actively refuse to talk to us, because I tried to get a community council thing going, no chance apparently, no interest apparently. So obviously I'm not that angel anymore, and I'm being harsh on these PTR patches when I don't like them. So yeah, they reap what they sow.
I mean, yeah, kind of have to be, and I would love to see just some more, like one more iteration with some changes. I mean, yeah, some numbers are too strong. The aura, I think it was talked about, but I think we should also have just a discussion about stuff that we basically never see in 101, because it can just make the game so much more exciting and refreshing, and some change of scenery can really do the game a lot of favors. Like Frostworms, whatever, like Tavern. Just we have so many really cool units that you just don't see. I don't know. We had Magical Potomir and Night Elf, and yeah, now you can't really do it.
But Kevin, we got a freaking new item in 2023.
Nah.
Rusty Mining Pick.
Yeah,
come on, that's new. I mean, that's exciting.
It's new. It's fun, but it's like too extreme. I mean, you talked about it, but I mean, you can already see. Like, it will maybe be good for your intro when you have like 3 bash in a row, but apart from that, I don't see any benefit on professional play. It just adds an element of randomness at a game stage where you really don't need it at that level of effect, I think. Because 1 or 2 bashes in the early game will just change everything. Then you have more benefit for a range hero as well. I don't know. Just imagine like an Archmage hits you, you get 1 bash, and then he has such an easy time to surround you. Maybe, I don't know. It's but maybe there are some more items. Maybe we should all open the map editor and see what we got. But maybe it's not that one, but something else.
Yeah, I guess
In the attic.
I mean, it kind of shows, since they added the Ring of the Archmagi and now the Rusty Mining Pick, they are taking items from the campaign that are available, so they don't have resources to create new items, but pick available ones. Maybe we should actually do that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would be fun. In theory, you could just take every spell, and do some iteration, do some remix.
Yeah, that's what I said last time we had the patch.
But I mean, the mining pick, we'll see.
Hopefully not.
I'm just really like, I want the creativity, but I don't want extreme changes in the early stages of the game. I think that's really, really dangerous. You can just have like collateral damage. I don't know.
So yeah, go ahead.
I think, I mean, I don't like necessarily disagree that that would be good with like more shakeups, but I think shakeups are a bit more scary in Warcraft, since we don't know like when patches are coming. So it becomes like a bit more risky to aim for like big ambitious changes, because it might just stay that way forever. That's the one thing. And also, like in general, I think my one big main complaint of the patches, even like disregarding what they contain, is like they don't have any form of, let's call it a mission statement. So like I feel like most companies, when they patch, are like, this patch is focused on getting balance to a better spot. And then maybe like 3 months later they're saying, okay, this patch is, we want to shake up the meta a bit. We want to try to get some units used that haven't been used. I think it's very hard to make a patch that does both of those things, or several things at the same time. Just because, I mean, when I try to like do my suggestions, and I try to be extremely conservative, only focusing on balance, getting feedback, and you get like 15,000 different people may have different opinions, which is totally fine. But it's a very like difficult puzzle piece to put together. Which you also then add, you do a lot of new stuff, and then you do item changes, and then you like, so you need, I think, like, to get anything good, you need to be more focused. And I feel like these patches in general are just like a bit all over the place, and it really annoys me that I don't know what their main focus is, if they have a main focus, of course.
I completely agree, but again, like what you said is totally correct. We don't have many patches, but then if you want to change something and you do it that slowly, then you will never really change anything. That's the other, like if you just turn it around, you just have the problem on the other side as well. So yeah, it's I feel like both approaches might be risky, because if you change too slowly and you don't create anything new for a long time, then that's also not the best. Because that's my fear to some extent. I don't know.
Yeah, I think both fears are like very understandable, and it also like depends a lot on where you are with the game, I guess. I think my interpretation is that I think maybe players and pro players might actually, I think it's often quite the opposite of what people think. I think there's a thought that viewers are very bored at watching similar-ish games. I actually think it's opposite. I think players get bored playing similar stuff, and viewers actually finally can watch the same meta-ish for a longer time. But they also get probably more angry of whether it's correct or not, like a perceived imbalance. They feel like the players they're rooting for not winning, right? So that's just
like
my
the same idea
interpretation.
with maps, right? With a map pool, it's the same. Like you can tackle it from that side as well, and Hive Workshop does a great job. But yeah, overall, I like some change. I think it can make things a bit more interesting, can be fun for some time, but there won't be any radical changes, from what we saw. So, it's overall, as I said, I think it's a bit dull and uninspired, but
Kevin, Warcraft 3, not amused with the patch. Thank you very much for your input, man. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So, from one night elf to the other. One of my favorite co-casters in the world, RazerMoon, what's up, dude?
Oh, hello, Neo. Hi, thanks for having me in, actually.
So, I assume you have a lot of opinions on this patch.
I kind of do, but I'll try today just to talk about like Night Elf perspective, but I'll also try to match a few other matchups. And I just want to go quickly over like the human balance changes. So the bash bonus damage increase, I think the Night Elf, it's like going either way. It's either getting devastated and then this buff is kind of meaningless versus Night Elf, or it is basically, the MK basically does nothing. It allows to have a few mana burns and then it's not as effective. So unless it reaches for the late game, it doesn't do much against Night Elf, in my opinion. But against Undead, it's the other story, because you often have Lich, you often sell TP, you come across map, and if whatever happens, and if MK especially gets the kill for Lich that's level 2 or 1, it's getting closer to level 4, and once it's level 4, like, the game might develop unexpectedly. So I'm not an EUD player, so I cannot really, you know, like, talk on behalf of the Undeads here, but, like, I'd be concerned if I be Undead, of course. The next thing is Devotion Aura, aka Vibranium, Titanium, Rifle, Pali. It's, you know, something made out of some of those, you know, mystical metals now. I think everybody just understands this one pretty much. Like, I don't have to add much here. It just full meme, but okay, like, sure, yeah, thanks. And yeah, if I go into that, I must also say that I'm, though, very, very thankful that there is actually someone out there who makes the work and who does patches, because I think that's very exciting once we're having new stuff to play with and everything. Then the Night Elf changes. The Druid of the Claw increase. I think it's actually very justified. I think this is a good change, and
Druid
I'm a
Talon.
Night Elf player. Yeah, because now the Druid of the Talon has 2 roles in the game. It used to be a support/caster unit, and now it does the actual fighting versus Undead. And therefore, I think this is actually justified, because now it has the extra role in the game, and therefore, it might see that increase. Immolation activation cost 1 to 5, okay. Could be 10, could be 5. I don't think it changes the concept, because as Dice was actually saying, we need some spell rework, so it has the damage cap, same way like the Panda has it or something, so it is actually getting balanced against human. And also, talking about immolation, I feel like in game there are just some moments, then problems that the mistake costs are different for race. So essentially, if there is a human creeping his expo and his footman is getting, let's say, 3 random hits from some troll that just ensnare the unit and then just retarget it, because that's how creeps work, and it deals those 3 damages to the footman, it's essentially very hard for human player to heal. Like, problem is that, let's say, Undead has at least 3 ways of killing the unit. Either send it back to the base, it has Coil 2, the Staff, and now Cannibalize. So there are like few ways to cover for your mistakes or damage distribution during the creeping, while human needs to build that extra shop that's not exactly the original plan of like expanding, you know, that's the meta play on most maps. So I don't have a solution here, but probably that's just one of the things I would probably, you know, encourage people to look at and maybe find some, you know, because we could nerf immolation to basically DHB not usable at all, and maybe everyone would be happy. But if we want to keep the spell and make, you know, this like somehow the actual like balance, so it's like not feeling as frustrating for the human side of the players, right? So I think something must be changed along the lines. The Warden, well, I can't be objective here. That's my very favorite hero. I am a Warden player. Lowlight is now probably opening some champagne, if he has one, as well. But thing is, like, as I said before, Fan of Knives damage works with there is no unit cap for the spell, basically, on the editor. It just doesn't exist there as a line. It works as maximum damage is getting divided by the target damage. So numbers here, all of them need to be changed. So it works correctly. If you want to make it 6 unit cap and 200 units, the formula would be 1,200 max damage divided by, let's say, 200 for the max damage for the spell, because it was explained due to the orb ticks. Because now, like, Warden is not as good in the actual fights as DH is, because it doesn't have mana burn, it has less, it's more squishy, etc., etc., and therefore its late game balance is kind of tied to layman human economy. Like, whether they love, I mean, they cannot love it, they of course hate it probably, but it is like the competitive way of playing the hero. And so it stays there. Probably it needs to be plus 10 damage at level 3, but also then the numbers gotta be changed a little bit here and there, I think, just to make them work correctly.
Are we
the
sure that there's no unit cap? Because I am 100% sure there's a 455 unit cap.
That's not exactly the unit cap. As I said before, the unit cap is created artificially. It is the max damage divided by damage per target. This is exactly what creates the unit cap. So those two numbers need to divide exactly correct. It needs to be a full number. So right now, if you divide, they forgot or they did not change the max damage to the unit. So it's 190. And therefore, once you divide 1,200 into 190, you get 6.31. And therefore, it affects 7 units right now, as it is, with dealing max damage to every. So it's even bugged because there is no unit cap and it was created artificially. That's like how the spell is working at the moment. Therefore, either plus 10 to level 3 or just need to be all different numbers for each of the levels. I just did some testing tonight. Speaking of, by the way, of the hero move speed change, I don't have an opinion on that, to be honest. So, like, you know, historically, intelligent and strength heroes used to be very slow, unless they had a horse or they were just a keeper by, you know, being born as a non-horse creature, I guess, or DK, let's say, which is has a horse as well, right? So, probably like from Night Elf perspective, okay, like, you know, I'll be still catching them, whatever, like, doesn't matter really. But I think not to get people frustrated, probably maybe it's better to leave things as they are, because once you take something from a race, you know, they kind of, it feels not that great, I would say. Just doesn't, you know, feel good once they're like, okay, now your heroes run slower, and you're like, oh, what did I do to deserve it? Like, you know, this kind of point. Then Undead, I don't want to be saying anything, but like, I don't see any Gark or Nerup changes properly. Like, okay, they could do the Carapace. I don't know, whoever, you know, like maybe on 4v4, they kind of use it. Probably, maybe good if, okay. It's a, you know, meme spell to go if you play Crippler first. So like, Undead players will say something better about it, I guess. Raise that again, like Necromancers, must 3 units. That's going to be very exciting for me. Though Night Elf, to be fair, on the pro scene is not getting really affected by this. Like, even if the number stays like this, I think Night Elf will do well against a specific strategy. So, I'm not sure, really. Nerup Tower cooldown, like we could, you know, I also think it's not the right approach to the Nerup Tower, and also I don't think it's the right way to, I wanted to almost say percentage, but I don't find saying percents that they change the spell for as a good approach, because we need more to apply any changes to the actual numbers and actual game situations that happen in the actual game. Then we get like what's called balance. If we just go like 1 becomes 2 and that's 100% increase, and like, wow, that's, oh my god, so much. And then 10 becomes 11 and that's 10% increase, but those two could be completely different in terms of their effect on balance. So it is like, yeah, 50%, you know, like nerf, but 1 to 1.5 doesn't do anything really. Like, it's not the correct approach here, I think. Speaking of the orc section, Spirit Walkers, I'm tiny bit concerned being Night Elf. Like, speaking of the Spirit Walkers here, because like Night Elf side, even though orcs kind of always complain about Night Elves and this and that and must hunts, and you used to like do this and that, and you can AP push, you could go talents. You could go talents, you could go anything, and basically, there is no meta strategy right now for the Night Elves playing against Orcs. So every Night Elf has his own what he believes in. It could be essentially DH Keeper Druids, could be DH Keeper Bears, DH Nugget, whatever it is, like talents. Some could still play Keeper first, but there is no meta strategy. And now we're kind of buffing Spirit Walkers. That would be very good.
If I can intercept you for a second, isn't that a good thing to have so much variety? Or is it a bad thing because there's no clear one way of doing it?
Yeah, the thing is, Orcs figured out, it took them a while, but they have exact one single strategy that beats kind of everything. Because there is Blade Master, Shadow Hunter, and Serpent Wards. They kill Dryads, they kill Talents, they kill Bears, they kill Buildings, they kill Heroes. While for the Night Elf side of things, you always gotta like this create, right? So for Orcs, it's always frustrating to scout because they have their problem, like kind of big part of their problem is in scouting, is finding out if I'm getting AP pushed, if that's Keeper. So they might be getting, I think, frustrated on that department because it could be variety of things that Night Elf could play. But in terms of having some meta strategy, that's a bit different. And Spirit Walkers here, of course, would be very good against Bears. That's like my initial thought because Bears are now starting to get played. I'm not sure if that's just too many buffs on the same. Like it could be, you know, I don't want to say it's good or bad. I just want to say like all that same time, like, well, okay, like I'm not an expert here in terms of Orcs. I'm actually struggling with them, so I'm I don't know, like could be a good one. I would better have someone more professional than myself actually talk about this here. The upgrades, the lumber cost, I think the attack ones I could get probably, but the armor, I think you mentioned that like it was 300 something on level 3, right? But the thing is 75, yeah, but that's for all the units that the Orc has. Flying and ground and ranged and melee, that's, you know, like one universal for entire that Orc has. Right, so like the armor upgrade there for the melee, like an ranged attack I could get. I see where that's coming from, okay. But like the armor one, I think, I'm not sure if that's a good idea, but like Orc doesn't have that much macro in terms of resource gathering because it's always 7 peon, it's always a war mill, and they always gather a lot of lumber there. So not like really sure if the armor one is probably okay, but like it's up to the community and of course more professional people than myself to decide. Speaking of the items,
to once again to intercept you a little bit, like as a Night Elf especially, if you have a Dryad Bear combo, you also only upgrade one kind of armor, right? So it also goes for your entire army, which is not that different than from the Orc army, but it's a lot cheaper on level 3.
True though. Yeah. So maybe you're right, Neo. I'm not gonna be like, you know, saying that I'm correct anywhere. I'm just like saying that because it's like both flying, ground, everything. That's why kind of.
Yeah, I see the concern for sure. Yeah, but 325 lumber is still quite a lot, I think.
Yeah, probably, maybe, like think so, could be. Yeah. So item circlets and everything like well kind of Demon Hunter that gets a circlet is definitely a good hero. It's slightly worse versus human versus getting a ring, I think, in terms of harass, because the most important kind of parameter here is the duration of your harass. And like once you get the ring, you still could stay more seconds at your opponent's side of the map. So I think ring would still prevail for the elf players here. If it's good to keep it level 2 or 3, it's debatable. I don't have a strong opinion on that, to be honest. But rusting mining peak is just insane. And it's insane for one simple reason. As if right now, you could get it from creeping, let's say, natural location. Let's say you're playing human. And you creep your natural, you fast expand on Northern Islands. It's super easy, it's convenient, and you get this rusty mining peak. What happens next? Anybody coming to harass you, let's say it's a ghoul, it's getting stand for like 2 seconds or 3, I'm not even sure the duration. And it's not about even getting stand, it's that about during the unit getting stand there, he's gonna get quite a few extra like shots of damage from all the units that the opposing side has, and it's gonna triple that like effect into the damage conversion. It's almost as good as getting Claws plus 12 or something of that nature. It's like I'm speechless. Also, it works. I just tested on ranged units and heroes. I mean. So like Undead come was a timing attack with that item, and you cannot, press invul because you're bashed now. It could intercept the personal staffs for Night Elf, human, and others out there, like even Orc players with a blade against Night Elf, right? It just creates a lot of RNGs that I'm not the big fan of, because I don't think, for the balance purposes, it's actually good. So yeah, and I think that like the developers, if they're going to be out there listening to this message, like I hope they're watching, I just want them to see more of that, like the certain problem points of the matchups, because Warcraft is a beautiful game and it's actually good, I think, but there are some like ultimate compositions for armies, let's say, and just to diversify that or change the the flow of the game a little bit here and there, I think we need some conceptual changes. More than just tweaking the numbers and finding 5 minus 5 plus 10. Conceptual changes, it's, let's say, such as buffing Warden. So now Warden might actually see some light, see some play. It's very exciting here to see, let's say. And same could be done for other race. So, like even for Undeads and stuff like that. And there are like some just broken points with like Demon Hunter getting 2 rings from first 2 camps, plus 7 armor, harassing human. Hunter supply UD Garks that is like just easier to kind of execute and pull from the UD side of things versus Night Elf, such as many other things in the game. So I just hope that like healing issue for the human and like mistake opportunity, like mistake cost is higher, as I mentioned. And so if those kind of overall things are getting tiny bit addressed or changed in some way, I think that'd be very beneficial for the game. So yeah.
That is some good input, mate. Thank you very much. Dondo, do you have any comments, any questions, anything?
I mean, I've talked so much with Razer already over like all the different patch sessions. I agree with more or less everything. I think the print, like that's again a question of reworking and stuff. There's a lot. I think it's interesting that they don't pick the low-hanging fruit first, which would be easy to pick up. Like there's a lot of stuff I think most people agree upon. We can target that first and like go from there. There's one thing I think Night Elves should think about, that like find a way to work into as a proper solution. Because with Scars talked about earlier about racial identity, and one thing Night Elves used to have, it was kind of broken in one specific matchup, but it wasn't completely broken. I think you could find a way to make it work, and that's getting Ultravision back to level tier 1 somehow, without messing up the Orc versus Night Elf matchup. That was like a very big part of Night Elf identity, I feel like, that they actually had that advantage in the early game. That's like one thing you Night Elves can theorycraft more about, because I've seen you haven't suggested it that much, but I actually think that is pretty interesting to try to find a way to make work.
The thing is, that's the thing. So I'm not sure what's right in terms of elf orc balance, because I kind of feel the orc players there, right? And Ultravision was definitely stronger than their placement in terms of the all that we got. But on the same hand, maybe the matchup, in order to be balanced, need to be like this kind of broken on the Night Elf side of things, that everybody just tries to play whatever he believes in. Maybe that's the right way to make it balanced, and if so, then let it stay. I think that's the correct decision. That's why I'm not targeting, because I don't have like that strong opinion. Like, okay, we get it back, we start demolishing orcs again, orcs are unhappy, then like it doesn't feel good winning. So I'm not exactly sure here in terms of like what's the right thing, and therefore I'm just not targeting. We still got our heroes. We still got a meme Potom with Aura. That's a super fun and cool hero to play. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, man. Thank you very much for your input. Can't wait to meet you in 4 weeks.
Absolutely, Neo. Definitely, I'm coming to Dortmund. So thank you so much for all of your efforts, and thanks for having me. Appreciate you guys.
Take care, dude. Bye-bye.
Sure, bye-bye.
Such a great addition, dude. Also very reasonable input from this man.
Indeed.
We're gonna talk to SaySo next, if he's ready. Oh, he's deafened right now. That's just...
That's a good sign.
That's a great sign. We just pull him in, and
I mean,
by
it
the
must
way,
be
if you
like
have to leave, like,
yeah, I can stay to SaySo at least. I mean, it's gotta be like 7 in the morning there. There you are. Hey, SaySo.
Yo, what up? Can you hear me?
yes, sir.
Yep.
How's it going down under?
Yeah, it's all good. Lunchtime.
So you want to talk about free for all balance with this new patch?
I mean, I think this will affect free for all a lot, but I was going to speak about solo, not free for all. But I think this will be Bladestorm, especially in free for all, will be very good, and Devotion Aura, because you actually see the high level heroes there that are using those spells that you don't really see in solo. But I think free for all balance isn't too important in the grand scheme of things. So.
So you're a very good player with a lot of races, so the stage is yours, man. Tell us everything you want to say about this patch.
So I don't personally think this patch will be too impactful. I really do agree with Kevin that it's not that fun or exciting. There's not really, potentially apart from Warden and maybe Pally Rifles being used a bit more, I don't think it's going to create a lot of strategic diversity. I don't think there's going to be new units really used. So I think some units, like Firelord, probably some other ones I can't think of off the top of my head, could have more buffs to be used more often, and create some more interest in the meta. Like, I think what they did with dots last season, that was like a perfect change where they made them really usable against destroyers and things like that. Like, that was really good. It made the game more fun and another unit be used in different situations. So they should look at changes like that. In terms of the balance, I guess we'll start with the human. I think the militia duration is good. The bash damage will be, it's pretty irrelevant, I think. Like, if you look at 50 damage, 30% of the time, it works out to be an extra 8 damage per hit. So it's like finding a clause. So I think that'll be, not really impactful. It'll be minor change, so not really relevant.
But is it the same if the damage is distributed over 8 hits instead of coming instantly?
Well, it would be distributed over... I mean, I guess you're right when you think of it like that. So I guess RNG is weird, where it could be the case that it's like, if you bash 3 times in a row, then it's obviously going to be a huge amount of damage in a short time frame. But overall, I think it won't be that impactful. Like, I think we barely ever see level 2 bash. Like, we see it occasionally if they go MK first versus Undead. Usually at level 5, they'll respec to clap anyway. We might see it occasionally if they go 1 base rifles versus Orc. But even then, I don't think it's going to be game breaking or game changing. I think it's like, probably a nice little change because bash isn't used a lot. So maybe it'll be good MK versus Lich when it's both Expo and the MK is chasing around your Lich the whole time. It might make a little bit of difference, but yeah. The Devotion Aura, I think we might see Paladin Rifles being used. Other than that, I don't think it's going to be super impactful. 6 and 9 armor is obviously insane, but you need a level 4 Paladin. Usually Paladin's a 3rd hero, so it's very rare that you get a level 4 Paladin 3rd. I'd challenge someone to go look through the games, and it'll be less than 5% of games that you see a level 4 Paladin 3rd versus human. So it's going to be very niche that it affects it. Maybe very late game on Twisted Meadows versus Orc or something like that. It could have an impact. I think 6 is too high.
So. Don't you think humans would change to go more Palace second against Undead with this change? I would think so.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, even then, I think the Paladin is the first target if you go Paladin second. So I think they'll never be going, I think, Devotion second. And they may not even be going Devotion at all because you need to keep your Paladin alive. Obviously, you can't have Divine Shield and Devotion Aura. 6 is too strong just as a general number. I think you're not going to be seeing it very often. I think Pally Rifles, there's a chance that it could be too broken. And it may actually be used versus Orc and Undead and be really strong. The level 4 push, if you go level 2 aura and then get 2 attack upgrades and push with Blood Mage, I think that it could be really strong. We'll wait and see, but I don't think it's going to be super impactful outside of that push. Because it's just level 4 Paladin isn't used enough. But I think like maybe 5 armor and then 7 armor would be better for Devotion Aura, just as like more fair numbers, like 3, 5, 7.
But do you think the value of Devotion is an issue right now? Like, is it too weak right now?
I mean, I guess what Blizzard's thoughts were is that most people were still picking Divine Shield the whole time. Like I know when I play versus human players, they've almost always got Divine Shield. Maybe at level 4, they'll pick up level 1 Devotion once they've already got Divine Shield level 1. So I guess they looked at games and said, well, this is barely being used outside of, 4v4 and stuff like that. I think it's going to have a big impact. But in solo, you're not seeing Devotion Aura used a lot. Potentially at level 4, they skill it. And it might be good against Orc when you go Mass Griffins on Twisted Meadows and Lost Temple. You may potentially even get Devotion 2 instead of Holy Light. But again, it's quite like a niche sort of situation. So I don't think it's going to have a big impact on balance overall. But I may be wrong, and maybe Paladin Rifles will just be super strong, and Human will just be able to push with this and kill Undead and Orcs straight away with it. I think there's a possibility that happens.
I can interject a bit here. I think you might actually be right that it is like not super impactful on top level, especially. I really don't like Paladin Rifle becoming a lot stronger just because it's such a forgiving strategy on low MMRs, which can be like super broken, even if it's not broken on top play. And also, I think, like what we talked about earlier, is that even if it's not broken in most games, the fact that it will sometimes be completely broken, just in the really rare case you get a level 6 or 7 Pala, right? I mean, it doesn't happen often, but just let's say I do. We still shouldn't have values in the game that, like, if that happens, it becomes completely broken. Let's just not hope it happens often. I don't think, like, that's a good way to approach, like, values, no matter what. Like, so that's, like, my approach to it. You're probably true that, like, even if you actually think about it, Devotion Aura might not be used that much except for Paladin Rifle, and that strategy will always have, like, its strategical weaknesses on the top level. But it doesn't change the fact that if the Undead Human matchup in a normal game gets a bit crazy and you get that high level Pala, those 9+ or 6+ armor is like completely game changing, I think, at that point. But yeah,
I agree. I completely agree. That's why I think like maybe 3, 5, 7 will be better. Maybe even like 3, 4.5, 6. Either one of those numbers I think would be a better change. On the very rare situation, and in FFA especially, where you do actually get the level 7 Paladin, then I think it'll be too strong. And so from like a general just design point of view, you don't want things to be ridiculous, even if you barely see them in solo. So I do agree with you about that. The movement speed, I think it's a good change. I think overall having heroes slightly slower is good. So they can't chase down units as easy. The Druid
do you
of the
think
Talon,
it's a good change since you still have 320 heroes though? Like, is it that? Because that's like the thing I worry, like think about. Like, you're only reducing the speed of certain heroes.
I mean, looking at the heroes that they've targeted, I feel like Paladin probably doesn't need to go down, but lots of the heroes like Mountain King and Naga Sea Witch and some of those heroes are like chasing heroes. So maybe there should be the thought that you need the investment to get boots of speed or whatever it is to make them more impactful. I mean, I think 10 movement speed, I'm not sure exactly how much that's going to change in reality or what it's going to look like, but I just assume it's going to be slightly easier for units to get away from them. Like, I'm not sure. The 10 movement speed, I'm not sure how much it changes. Like, it seems kind of a random change. Like, I wouldn't mind not seeing it or seeing it. We'll see how it works out, but, Yeah,
I definitely agree that it looks random to me as well.
Like, I don't think anyone is asking for this. We'll wait and see how it works,
Oh, actually, a lot of people were asking for this because they want the old pre-reforge balance back. So they said when they buffed the movement speed of the heroes, that was the downfall, blah, blah, blah. So this was demanded to a degree.
Okay. I mean, I guess it is a slight buff to Demon Hunter, Warden, and Blade Master that can chase stuff down better and can chase heroes without boots, which I kind of do like. You know, those heroes are meant to be sort of assassins and agility heroes. So I guess that's sort of the thinking behind it, you know?
All right, yeah, I see that.
I guess moving down to Night Elf, the Druid of the Talon cost increase, you know, I mean, it seems more 10 gold. I mean, I don't think dots is super broken. Like, I wouldn't mind keeping it at 135, but I guess 145 is okay. I feel like they're not used versus Orc very often. Versus Undead, obviously they can be strong, but they're not sort of super impactful. You know, maybe we'll see after that the light game, Druid of the Talon is used more, but I don't feel when I play Undead there's a super issue with Druid of the Talons, and I don't think they're used versus Orc very often, you know. So I think keeping it 135 would be fine, but moving it up would also probably be fine as well if that strategy becomes more popular. I think these immolation nerfs are quite interesting because at the moment, I think Alpha really needs a way to target undead expansions, and so immolation's needed versus that, and it might even need to be strong versus undead expansions, but it's overtuned versus human expansions. So I feel like this change here will make human versus Night Elf a lot more balanced, because I think it's our favorite at the moment, but it will make Undead better versus Demon Hunter as well. And Undead's probably already too good versus Elf, so I don't know about these changes. Like, I think it is good to have like a activation cost increase and things like that, so it's not just like a spell that you don't even have to think about using. But it may make Undead expansion too strong versus Night Elf, or force them to use Warden every single time.
I think good. Like, I agree on that point, and I also think it's an interesting thing that Undead has a lot more potential than Human has to bait out immolation activation. Because they have fast ghouls, they have their Roop Tower if they're trying to expo. So they can like move the ghouls into the DH, force immo, and then move away. So then they might actually have to reactivate quite often. I don't think Human has the same possibilities. So it's maybe a bigger nerf against Undead than it is a buff for Human in that way.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that. You can move ghouls in, force them to use immolation, and instantly move back. And again, it's not like a huge mana difference, obviously, but it's still more of a nerf to Night Elf versus Undead than it is to Human versus Night Elf.
Yeah.
I think that in conjunction with the Militar duration will mean getting expansion up and losing less peasants versus Elf is better. And it'll probably help to sort of balance that matchup a little bit. I still think it'll be Elf favored because they didn't touch Fairy Dragons at all. I feel like Fairy Dragons are probably the big issue in that matchup. Mana Flare is just too strong. This will mean Human more often gets a slightly safer expo and loses a few less peasants, so the 70 food push will be slightly stronger. But if the Elf survives that and gets to the late game where Fairy Dragons come out and, you know, you get really high Elf heroes, then I think Human's still going to lose. So I would have liked to see some sort of slight nerf on Mana Flare.
Very good point. Yeah. I mean, in my suggestions, that's also like a full page committed to Mana Flare, so I don't know how I forgot it. But yeah, I really agree. It's a very, very... It's situational, so people often forget about it, but it's extremely strong in a lot of situations when it actually works.
Yeah, like the problem with that matchup is it does feel like the longer the game goes, eventually Night Elf wins. Like once they get level 6 Demon Hunter, once they get, you know, like Chims, once they get Fairy Dragon, stuff like that. And obviously, again, it's like a smaller thing that we don't see too often. Like it might be on Twisted Meadows occasionally. But same as a Devotion Aura, you do want to feel like you have a chance to win at every stage of the game. And if you feel like if you get super late and the game's just over, then that's not good. Especially with the map changes now, the Twisted Meadows is back, you know, Lost Temple's back. We might see more games go very late, which is exciting. I think these Warden changes are good. RazerMoon was talking about all the maths, which I haven't looked into, but obviously they need to get it right so that it is actually an impactful buff. Like, Warden's a fun hero to use, I think. It's fun to watch for observers. It's fun to use. It's not so fun to play against. But it being slightly stronger, especially in the early game, will probably be good. It might be slightly too strong at level 3, which you do see a lot. Like, every time you see Warden, you will see it. So it is going to be impactful in games. Maybe 1200 is too much. Maybe not. I guess we'll wait and see. Like, obviously, it's going to do a lot of damage to the backline of human casters, and a lot of damage to ghouls. So, but I mean, the issue with Warden again is, like, at level 7, like we saw the other day with the Light versus Happy, it does start to drop off. So even if you do get there, often you can lose. So we'll wait and see. But I think that's probably the change in the right direction, because we don't see Warden as much as we could, and I think Warden's fun to see.
Agreed. So your specialty now, eh?
I mean, I'll probably play human next patch looking at these changes, but we'll wait and see.
Are you excited about the Crypt Lord passive?
So I think this will just be an irrelevant change. I think Beetles and Impale is always too good. You know, maybe there's some crazy situation where you'll respec at level 4 or something to Impale and Carapace. But, like, no one clicks on the Crypt Lord anyway. And, like, if they see you've got this spikes, no one's going to click on it. Maybe at, like, 1200 MMR games where people just attack move and the Crypt Lord's at the front, everything's hitting it, then it could have some impact. But I think at any sort of, like, pro-level games, like, Crypt Lord's already barely seen. And if it is seen, we're not going to see people using this. So I think it's a completely non-issue. What I would like to see, which would be cool, is to give Crypt Lord a taunt ability on Spike Carapace, like same as the MGs have. And then I think there is actually some impact that this could have, and it could be potentially used occasionally in a game. At the moment, the way it is, I think we'll just never ever see it in any game. So it's just irrelevant.
That's not a horrible idea on first. Like, that's the first time hearing it, so could protect like a Fiend backline with a Crypt Lord in front, theoretically. Because we don't really have tanks as Undead, right? So that's fine.
Yeah, I think something like that, it could be interesting to have. And, like, you may see it used a slight bit more, you know. Like, I still think doubtful. I feel like we're not going to see Undeads moving away from Dark Ranger and Naga and stuff like that to use Crypt Lord. But maybe there's some chance people will use it, you know.
Okay.
So the Necro changes, I think, are good, but maybe too strong. I think the main way we might see this is Undead start to use Necros versus human to push. Like, Fiends is looking quite bad these days versus human. So Undeads will be looking for new strategies. I feel like with the reduced mana and you can being there probably, you know, 30 seconds faster with reduced costs and things like that, means we may see Necro pushes against human. It's hard to say whether or not they'll be super effective. Like, how I feel with Necros works is either you tend to win right away or you don't win at all. Like, once the human properly stabilizes and gets a whole bunch of Mortars and Master Priests and stuff like that, you barely win. But this will make the Necro rush stronger. And especially versus NK, I think we may see it be used a little bit. Potentially versus Alph as well. Like, I've used Necros a little bit versus Alph. You have the same issues where it tends to feed the heroes high, and once they get like level 6 Demon Hunter and things like that, then you lose. But yeah, like, I think Necros obviously underused on the pro scene. Like, since Imphy stopped using them with Crypt Lord like 2 years ago, I feel like I've almost never seen them in a pro game ever. So they do need to be used. Maybe the buff is too much where they'll be overused. Like, raised dead mana reduction cost, I think that might be too strong. Like, that is a big mana cost change. And often all your Necros will run out of mana and then you can't use it anymore. That'll happen way less often. So I think we'll wait and see, but that could potentially be too strong versus human.
I mean, we saw it in FFA already quite a bit, right? So that's probably scary for that game mode as well.
Yeah, like, it is scary. Like, for humans, and I've played a little bit of human versus some like Cass and stuff like that who are pushing with Necros, especially that first push is really scary. And that first push is going to be a little bit earlier, or you have a little bit more gold, and you're going to have quite a lot more skeletons with that 50 mana change. So I think that will be potentially scary. Pushing it like 60 food right away with Necros, Riders right before human can get Mortars and Priest properly up. But we'll wait and see. Humans will have a slightly cleaner expo, so the Narub change plus the Militar change will mean that human expos are cleaner than they already are. So I think those overall human will be slightly further ahead than what they currently are. So maybe that'll balance out the Necro change. And I think there's a good chance Happy just never uses Necros no matter what. Like he just refuses to use them even though they are better.
Yeah, it's not his style
it's
at
quite
all.
likely.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think the Narub tower cooldown change is good. I do like that change.
Do you think it does anything? Like, we kind of think it doesn't, but I want to hear the arguments for why it does anything. Because I don't think it actually does anything to the slow effect, right? Because it's still slow a lot longer than the cooldown. So it's basically just a damage reduction.
It means from my understanding, it means you can only juggle Narub Tower to 2 units instead of 3. With good micro, you used to be able to juggle it to 2 Water Elementals and the Archmage, or the Demon Hunter and the Naga easily by just clicking it back and forth over and over again. Now, with like a 3-second slow, you can only juggle it to 2 units. So your expo will get cancelled quite a lot more often when you got 2 Water Elementals and an Archmage hitting it, and you could previously juggle the slow and everything, but now you won't be able to.
Yeah, but that actually, so that makes it easier. Like, the one matchup where it might have like a marginal effect is making it slightly easier for human to cancel Undead Expo, which kind of wasn't a problem already. So
yeah, I agree.
Because I don't think this helps Elf canceling Expos, because Elf usually like tries to cancel with solo DH or solo and the DH maybe in one Archer. So like you can juggle 2 units, right? So that's fine if you want to. You can just solo the DH, I guess, which is the important thing. So yeah, I feel like this change is like the wrong kind of change for Europe, but yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I think the bigger issue is not anymore human versus undead with undead exposed, but human versus elf. Undead versus elf with undead exposed, and I don't really think this targets that well. So maybe something slightly different to help elf versus undead expose is better. Because yeah, I think this will make human better versus undead, but it won't really make elf better. So I'm not sure what the best change is to make undead expose harder.
My suspicion sorry, you first. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
My suspicion is that I don't think Neurotar does that much, but it might be a small nerf to undead versus human expo. I think if this goes through with the Lich movement speed reduction, AM being the same, and Militia being a bit stronger, altogether makes just Lich fast expo against undead close to dead on like the top level. I think you have to go one base like aggression would be my first intuition. Maybe I'm like overstating it, but Lich is gonna get chased down so much more by the AM now, and you're also gonna get cancelled even more than you used to your own expo. But I might just be overestimating this effect. But this is like
I think you're right. I mean, I think this matchup's already really tough for Undead. It's definitely the hardest matchup for Undead in my mind. And this will make it even harder. So, yeah, we'll wait and see. Like, the problem is the one base Lich stuff doesn't work super well. Like, Happy was playing that for a while, and then after he lost against Sock, it seems like he pretty much doesn't play it at all. If Human just waits for a little while and then expose at like 36 food, then the Lich one base pressure doesn't work super well. So once all the humans figured out to do that, then the one base Lich pressure didn't work too well. And you just make a couple more towers to hold the tier 2 push or the tier 3 push. So it seems like Happy is just playing Expo every single game again because he doesn't believe in one base undead versus human. Maybe he'll be able to work it out, but from what I feel, like one base DK Fiends feels really tough against human now, and one base Lich feels really tough. Expo is definitely the best strategy. So if that's significantly nerfed, then I think it could be pretty hard for undead. Because yeah, the movement speed might make quite a big difference, especially once the Archmage gets boots and stuff like that. It might be able to chase down the Lich very easily. You know, same with the MK.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks pretty one-sided in that matchup, and I'm not too sure if that's the right direction that we need right now.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like Blizzard's like 3 months late to the party most of the time. Like three
Yeah.
or 4 months ago, this was like a more of a problem matchup and people were talking about it. And then since then, humans just been doing better and better every month in this matchup. You know, we saw Starbuck beat 1-0 yesterday. Obviously, Starbuck played great. But I don't think we probably would have seen that 6 months ago. So it feels like these changes are targeting a matchup that's probably not really needs to be targeted right now.
That's a really good point, man, because I had the same thought last time when they patched and they still nerfed headhunters when it wasn't an issue anymore. Great you bring that up.
Yeah, a little bit later. Yeah. For the Orc changes, I think all these changes are good. I think Spirit Walkers aren't used a lot. I still don't think they're going to see amazing playtime, but we may start to see some changes where we see them going Master, Spirit Walkers, and Taurens, which I think is cool because it's adding another new unit to the game, same as a dot change. So I like these changes overall. I barely see Spirit Walkers in any real matchup. I think they're used against Druid of the Talons, but that's barely used on the pro level. So I think this is overall like a good change that maybe introduces a unit into play and maybe indirectly uses brings Taurens into play as well, which aren't used. So I think that's all nice changes.
Cool.
The Blade Master change, I think it only affects FFA. I never really see a level 6 Blade Master. If it is going to be used in a normal game, usually versus Alf, when they go keep a hunt, I think it's going to be way too strong. I think Bladestorm is already super strong. I don't know why they'd make it 160. Like, this wasn't needed, and I think it'll be super strong. But again, it's going to be like a 5% of games type thing. It's going to be played in. But when it is played, I think that's going to be super, super strong. It's going to kill the entire like Hunt Archer or Human Backline or whatever in a second.
It's only 350 extra damage during the duration.
Yeah, see, like that's great. Like Bladestorm already, once they get it, it feels like holy shit, that did a lot of damage, and now it's just going to feel even worse. So I don't know why they made that change. I doubt that'll get through. If it does get through, the FFA is going to be the biggest one that's affected. Where you see Bladestorm every single game. That's just going to absolutely destroy armies. But when you do see it in solo, it'll wreck everything, you know. So weird sort of change, to be honest. Not really sure what the logic or the thought was. Blade Master's already used a lot, so yeah, don't know why they'd do that.
I kind of feel that Bladestorm, if you see it in one-on-one, is oftentimes a bit underwhelming. Depends on the unit, of course, that you target with that, but in FFA it's great. I feel like in one-on-one it's not that great, actually. For an ultimate, feels a bit meh at the moment.
I think it's the case also that all ultimates or spells that are based on AoE will always either feel extremely good or very underwhelming depending on situation. So like if you activate Bladestorm, it goes 2 seconds and you click a heal scroll. Suddenly it feels pretty weak, right? But it's very depends. Those kind of ultimates will always be like feel very on and off. But just like the fact you do 160 times 7, I can't even do the math anymore. I mean, you would kill 12 knights if they stood around the Blade Master in 7 seconds.
Yeah, you shouldn't
like,
stay around
like
the Blade
that.
Master.
Yeah, but I mean, like just the damage itself is very good. So it's more maybe like I feel like sometimes they misunderstand why things aren't used or not like that useful in 1v1. Like they think they don't see it as often, and sometimes they see it doesn't impact that much. But it's more to do with like in 1v1 there's less units, there's easier to microwave, maybe you have like some stun or something to stop it. You have heal scrolls maybe more easily available. But they then think, oh, because the damage is too small. But that's like not the main problem. I think Bladestorm is not that effective. It's more the surrounding elements, right?
Yeah, I see that point.
I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe a mana nerf, a mana buff will be the best change for it, where it's just slightly cheaper mana-wise to use. Because I feel like that's often why you don't see it, because it's just difficult to get the Blade Master with all that mana the whole time. I don't think I don't think Bladestorm has been particularly weak or strong. It's just sort of been like where it should be, I'd say. So maybe a very slight mana change would be the best idea. But I think that'll be too strong. But again, it'll be barely used. Like, you know, you're very rarely seeing a level 6 Blade Master, so I think it's not going to make a big change to the balance overall.
Yeah, I agree.
The upgrades, I think, is good. I think Orc is often starved for lumber. So with Orc, I often have felt the most like, damn, I can't get the upgrade because I don't have lumber. So obviously not a big change, but I think that's overall like fine. TC nerf speed, I think, is good. Like TC is a very strong hero and very positional. So if it's slightly more difficult to get it into the position for a major stomp, then I think that's overall good. Can't see any problems with that. I guess like the neutral movement speed, I think that's all just the same. I'd say maybe Panda and Alchemist don't need to be reduced in speed, but I guess it's just like a uniform thing, so it is what it is.
Yeah.
For the circlet, I think that's a good change. Like it feels kind of underwhelming to get it a level 3 drop, even though it probably is decent. I think now that the rings have been buffed, like I just feel that's changed. Like circlet will probably still be the strongest item to get, but it is nice to have like a little bit of RNG where there's a stronger item to get. It feels a little bit too strong for level 2, a little bit too weak for level 3. So, you know, whatever.
Yeah. But then shouldn't you just nerf or buff it so the value is more fitting to level 2 or level 3?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that change that they did where it's 2-2-1 would mean it's perfect for level 2, but it seems like they just couldn't figure out how to do that without breaking the game, so they gave up on it. If they could,
extremely complicated.
I think if they just did 3 items in the drop table that were all 2-2-1 in the 3 different formats, and you just got one randomly,
yes,
they would probably sort it out.
Yes.
But, you know, like,
I'm saying that for more than a year now, dude. Exactly that.
Yeah, I mean, it seems easy, but I guess this is a tough one for Blizzard, so they could never do it. You know, maybe in the future we'll see them be able to do it, and we'll get a more balanced item.
Yeah.
Technology is not there yet.
Once they learn how to tie their shoes, that's the next target.
Yeah. Tumor retraining. I think this is overall a good change. It's been a very rare situation, but it is, you know, like 5% of games type thing where 2 people want to retrain, you can't buy it. I don't see any reason why there wouldn't be 2. But I think the staff, there needs to be 2 as well. I think staff at teleport, that also needs to be 2, because that's more often where you go to the shop and you want to buy staff and they've already bought it. And it's kind of like, you know, ping comes into account there as well, because like you come in and I'm on like 200 ping, they're on like 50 ping, and I miss the staff every time for fighting for it. So having 2 seems more sensible.
All right, last one then.
I don't think that's a big change.
Last one, Rusty mining pick.
Okay, well, I think this is very bad. I think this shouldn't be part of the game at all. I think maybe like -3 armor and 1 damage could be a more interesting change as an item. I think at the moment, I mean, everyone's spoken about this enough, but I think it's just going to be way too strong on range heroes. You're going to pick up so many kills with an Archmage or Lich with boots. When they come to harass you, you're going to get so many footmen or ghouls. If someone comes to do a teleport, hero harass on you, there's a chance that you bash them and they interrupt it and they just lose the game. You know, you're focusing on a hero and you get a bash before they can TP and they lose the game. Like at high level, you can't lose a hero really ever. Often it will mean you lose the game. So I think this is just going to be bad. So I think it's a cool idea because it's something new, but it's wrong and they should think of a different way to do it. Like bash is just too RNG heavy. Like I don't know, -3 armor. I feel like a mini sort of corruption orb or something like that could be good. I don't know, -2 armor and 3 damage, or I don't know, something like that.
Something that doesn't break the game and doesn't immobilize you and allow everything else to attack you would definitely be a more decent idea, yeah.
Yeah, like even crit could be a little bit of fun, like a 50% crit. You know, you get on Demon Hunter or Archmage, and you've already got a bunch of claws. Like obviously, there's still a little bit of
crit
RNG
value.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, like something like that, like something a little bit fun. Or maybe there's like a 30% chance for you to get Fairy Fire, so you take increased damage. I don't know. Like there's other things that they could add on that could be impactful but more balanced.
Yeah, so basically everything else but something that is a stun.
Yeah, like stun is just bad. Stun is
So-
just bad.
Oh, poor guys. They picked the one thing they shouldn't. Dude, SaySo, there was some cool input from your side. You definitely pointed out something that we both forgot. So it was great having you on. Is there anything else you want to mention?
I think just the other few things I'd mention is I think Wand of Wind is still too strong and should be changed or removed from the game. I saw a pro game the other day where Foggy just won because he got Wand of the Wind, he surrounded the Shadow Hunter and just won the game straight away there. That item tends to be either way too strong or way too weak. If they've got Destroyers up, that just does nothing. If they don't, then you can get a free surround on a hero without a TP and win the game. So I think that should be added. I think it really should just be removed from the game. I think it's the same as the Rusty Mining pick. You just can't balance it well because it's just either way too strong or way too weak.
I mean, it is a consumable, so this is a little bit different because you can use it if it fits or just sell it if it doesn't. But the mining pick is like a permanent item, but which makes it a lot more extreme than a consumable.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is, let's say you're going to go harass someone and they just are just finishing off a creep that drops the Wand of the Wind, and you're going with a solo hero with staff, let's say, and then they bolt you or whatever, and then you go to teleport out, and then suddenly they Wand of the Wind you, and so now you're dead, and then they push you right away and you lose the game. Like, that does happen a lot in pro games as well. So I think it's just too much RNG to have in the game. Like, it's not fun.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, you could still reduce the duration or something.
I also like in that same direction is that I think the ideally, if like the game was perfect, you kind of want every time you sell an item to be a very difficult decision. Like ideally, I think now there's a lot of item selling in games in general. Like, cause you have like a few items you keep hold of. I mean, I feel like Happy sells like 70% of its items currently. That's probably exaggeration, but it's kind of like, so ideally, I think if you could like make the pool like completely from scratch, you would ideally try to find like items that are always hard to sell. There may be a bit too many items that are very good or very bad at the moment, so you get a lot of selling or just like non-use or game deciding usage of them. Yep,
I'd agree. I mean, like, items should be impactful, so you don't want to sell them, but maybe you need to. One of the ones there on the item, I feel. Oh, other thing I'll say, Crystal Ball. I feel like Crystal Ball should be moved to where Sentry Wards and Wand of Illusion is. I feel like that would be a more appropriate item pool for it to be in. And it would mean that you don't pick it up when you creep an expansion and they get claws +8 and you get Crystal Ball, Undead vs Human or something like that, and it just feels absolutely horrendous. I think Crystal Ball should be moved as well. It's just like, it's always a sell. You use it once and then you sell it. Whereas if it was in the Sentry Wards type area, then I feel like it would be a good item to have. And you probably wouldn't sell it for like 80 gold or whatever it is. So I think that would be a good change as well.
Yep. Agree.
Okay.
All right.
And then Firelord.
Firelord, yeah, tell me everything.
I'd say he's the only underused hero in the game now. Every other hero is used quite a bit, except for Firelord. So he's the last hero they need to make some small changes to. And then I think we'll have every hero used. Memory of Hod as well, give him something.
Any ideas of what that should be?
I think making Incinerate quite an exciting spell to use in some sort of way could be good. I don't know exactly how you'd make it work, and I actually don't have any ideas on this, but some sort of buff so he's used in some games would be exciting. Because it's like, I honestly feel every other hero, like Pit Lord or Alchemist, all these heroes, they manage to bring them into the meta, so they have some sort of use case now. Even Dreadlord and Blood Mage, we see it quite a bit now. Like, Blizzard's done a good job, I think, at making every hero kind of useful. The only hero I feel that just is useless is Firelord. So some sort of change to make it used in the game would be fun.
You heard it, Blizzard. Make Firelord hot again. Dude, thank you, SaySo. Thanks so much for your time, man.
Nah, all good, eh? Nice to speak to you guys. Thank you.
Take care, bud.
Bye-bye.
Sweet as. See you later. Bye.
4 hours, Dondo.
Yeah, I'm a bit spent.
Yeah, me too.
But like, I feel like I'm watching my stream in the background. Sometimes I kind of lose discipline on looking okay-ish on stream, but that's fine.
You
I
look
guess practice
damn
makes
fine.
perfect.
You look damn
Thanks.
fine. I mean, look at Carson. I mean, we allow Carson on the stream, okay? In comparison, you're absolutely beautiful. Yeah, so we go to the gym voice chat now to discuss this even further. This was a little bit extreme, but it was also cool to get your input, Dondo, as a human player, so I don't ruin the race again. It was cool to hear from pro players from all over the world, from all different sorts of races. And you'll probably read a lot and hear a lot in the future. Mr. Remo Demo has something to say, I'm pretty sure. Carson is writing lyrics or something. He probably won't know that there's a patch until he has the next broadcast. But, oh my god, I'm way too evil to Carson at the moment. But yeah, go to the forums. Let your voice be heard. What do you think of the patch? Create videos. Spread them. Don't complain afterwards. Complain now when they're listening for 2 weeks, okay? Whew. Thank you so much for your time, Dondo. 4 hours with you was a great evening to me.
Same here. It was a delight. TP
League tomorrow on the old patch. Hope you have fun with Mr.